What is up, everybody? This is our first time. We got Ambergram in the house.
Hello.
Yep, she's going to be a huge assist to us tonight because I'm dyslexic and always use the wrong words, like pamphlets and guides, but you'll see what's happening. So thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you guys for being with us. I'm Joshua, a farmer tattoo artist here in Clovis, California, and we are actually accessing you, even though it's through the YouTube channel, we're accessing you guys via Tattoo Vault. So a lot of you guys have, and girls, students alike, have actually been to our classes before. So we hope, somebody's saying they can't see anything. Hopefully that's not my fault. That's really weird. Can't see anything. Can you hear it? Somebody said they can't see anything. Can you see us? Can you hear us? Are we loud and clear? Because that would be weird if you guys are just listening to us and nothing else is happening. Let's see. Looks like the audio's good. I think the feed's good. Dalen, are you still there? And is the feed coming through on your end on the live? Okay, so it looks like everything's working. So Brody Jade, you might have to take a look at your devices. Okay, so she's saying it's black. Dalen, we're not black on your end, are we? On the actual stream? Okay, so it looks like it's good. I don't know what to tell you, Brody Jade. Hope that's good. If anybody else is seeing any black screens, let us know. So anyway, what I was saying is that some of you guys have actually been to the class before and also have signed up on the Tattoo Vault. It was previously, so there's no confusion, it was previously on the High Sierra Tattoo page. So now it's moved to the Tattoo Vault. It's actually tattoovault.com. So if you're confused at all with why it's so many different places, we got a High Sierra Tattoo tattoo shop where a lot of you have been. And then we have the Artistic Freedom stream, which is what we're on now. And then the Tattoo Vault is actually where a lot of this content lives, as well as some of the stuff we'll be going through, which is here made by the lovely Lele. And then we have an actual slideshow / guide we'll be going through that was made by the wonderful Ambergram. What a cool name.
Thank you.
What a cool name. Okay, so let's see here. Brody Jade saying, never mind. She had something just a little weird. Debra, thanks for being on here. Brody Jade, I know you guys aren't necessarily looking at being apprentices specifically, but you guys watch the show all the time, so thanks for being here. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But I will ask everybody to reserve questions for the end, because once we go through this, you're going to have a lot of the questions you might have now answered, and at the end we can go through them.
I think it's a great idea.
Amber, are you excited about this?
I'm so excited.
Are you?
Yes.
This is your first.
This is my first.
This is my first with you.
Yes.
It's our first live stream together doing this thing.
I'm
Why
stoked.
is Siri trying to she's trying to access me?
She was like, "Oh, how excited are you?"
So also, you guys watching, guys and girls, if you can go ahead and comment, let us know where you're watching from, who you are, if you're here looking to be an apprentice and or just watching for the hell of it, totally fine. So again, we'll answer most of the questions at the end, but we're going to be going through quite a bit. We're actually going to cover so much. I'll kind of get a little more specific here in a second before we even start the guide itself. But I'll give you a little sneak peek. That's what I'll do. So we're going to be going through stuff like this, which is a nice little slideshow guide. What was it made in? What do they call it? A PowerPoint?
It was made in Google Slides, which is like Google's version of PowerPoint.
Look at me. Look at
I
you.
know.
Look at us. Look at this guy. So we're going to go through a lot of this type of stuff, just a little quick glance. Yay. But stay tuned and we'll get into that stuff a little bit more. We also have a guest. I'm going to go ahead and introduce him now, as long as he's appropriate. Let's switch to him. Dalen, are you there? What's up, Dalen? So I might have muted him, or maybe he muted himself, but I don't hear him. Let's see here. Let's get some volume. I know you guys can see him, but we can't hear him. Let's take a look here. Interview is up, so maybe it's his audio. Dalen, we can no longer hear you. I don't know what happened. But there's Dalen. He'll be back on. Don't worry, guys. Okay, so we're going to switch back. It's probably an earpod thing. So let's go back to us. There we go. That's all you really need to see. So yeah, let us know where you guys are watching from and who you are. If you've been to the classes before, if you're interested in being an apprentice, introduce yourselves. You know me. It's your boy. Yeah, you know what? I need my sound effects. Oh, that's probably not a good idea. I got these at least. It's me. It's your boy. It's going to be a party tonight, and it'll be a lot of fun. This will be a little different because we're going to be talking about, well, it's going to be me talking a lot. And so to prep you guys a little, and Ambergram, please do me a favor and chime in anytime you don't feel bullied.
Okay.
Please.
I rarely feel bullied.
Like if I'm speaking over you, it's because it's my show. But also, if there's something you want to totally interrupt me with, feel free, because there's going to be a lot I'm going to go over. And so you guys watching this, especially if you're interested in being an apprentice, which is what this show tonight is about, is you learning how to become an apprentice or how to get an apprenticeship. So it doesn't sound maybe that interesting, but what is very interesting about it is that most people just want to be tattoo artists, right? Like everybody wants to be cool. Everybody wants to be a rock star. Everybody wants to be the thing, but nobody wants to do the work. But for those of you that are watching that do want to do the work, that's what we're going over tonight.
And the work is necessary.
That was a really good intro. We fucking nailed it.
Hell yeah.
Dude. Oh my God. You guys you don't even know what you're in for tonight. You know what we need? Just because of that right there, that little intro, I'll tell you what we need. We need some epic music.
Ooh.
So today we're going to be going over the intro to tattooing, how to get an apprenticeship. So we're literally going to cover, I probably shouldn't do that. We're literally going to cover everything you need to know. Really, we're going to cover every single aspect of tattooing, from how to get an apprenticeship to what to do in the industry. What does it look like? What are the certifications? I mean, we're going to go over so much. I'm going to go past a lot of the stuff so quickly. So I don't expect somebody to know it all. But speaking of knowing it all, there is a download. There is. Why don't you tell people where they can get said download or how they could get it?
Oh goodness. It was sent through email to everyone who signed up to classes before. I'm trying to think of how someone could access it now if they
if they go to our newsletter,
the email.
They can go to the newsletter on the High Sierra Tattoo page. Mm-hmm. So go to High Sierra Tattoo Co. and you can sign up to our newsletter. It'll prompt you right there on the homepage, or scroll all the way down if it doesn't prompt you, and you guys can sign up then. Somebody's calling.
Yeah, but that's not going to give them the.
So you're right. But what that'll do is be the newsletter for our shop. It'll give you all the updates. Correct. And we do time to time refresh everybody to let them know, look, we got these classes. We also have this other thing going on.
That did happen.
So you'll get a lot of this information. But also, and the best way is...
it did go out to the entire newsletter.
Mm-hmm. So anybody on the newsletter
has access to all of the notes we're going to go over.
So if you are on our newsletter, then lucky you. And that's how you do it. You go onto the newsletter, or you can go to the Tattoo Vault. Go to thetattoovault.com, and you got a lot of you guys have already been there. And then sign up there. There's going to be, for classes, you just sign up, and it's basically not per class you sign up. It's just sign up for essentially news regarding the Tattoo Vault. So that's where you're going to get a lot of this information. Actually, it's where you're going to get all the information in the future. Jake says, fix my shit. I don't know what that means. And then got to make dinner. Jake, go make dinner. Do your thing. I was working on Facebook, and it's working on YouTube. That's good. It looks like everybody's on here. Okay, so I didn't see any introductions, but I do see some thumbs up. Let's see. Looks pretty appropriate. So if you guys are watching this, also give us a thumbs up and get in the comment section. Don't be shy. Give us some hearts. Send us some stuff. Give us some stuff. So if you guys want, we can give you applauses for all the cool emojis that you send us. It's like, thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Oh my gosh. It's so cool to have a crowd in here. Actually, there's literally no crowd in here. That's the set right there. It's just us. It's just us and Dalen. Dalen, did we get your audio fixed?
Oh, it says.
Can you hear me?
Yes, there
you are.
Can
you hear me now?
Okay, so I'm going to introduce you now appropriately, okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, here we go. So this is the Daystar right here. In case you guys are wondering, he doesn't have an official nickname, but this is Dalen. Dalen, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are.
You figured it out. Oh no. How's everyone doing tonight? I am officially the newest apprentice over at High Sierra. I had a probation period for a couple of months, and about a month ago, a little less than a month ago, I officially came on board as the newest apprentice.
Yeah, and look at that shirt.
Hey, Dave.
Look at that shirt.
Go ahead and place your orders now for your gifts. Christmas is coming right around the corner.
I did not pay him to say that. That was on his own accord. This is cool. It's cool. It's almost like just hanging out in the shop. Show him the back.
Okay. Hold on.
There we go. He's wearing a kilt. I knew he would. There we go. There it is. This is actually my favorite shirt so far to date. This is it. This is the one I love.
It's beautiful.
Look at them trapezoids.
I couldn't see what you guys could see, so I was a little nervous. Okay. I don't got any underwear on.
Trust me, it all looked good. We got extra thumbs up on that one and a few. Okay, so Dalen, we're going to go ahead and go back to me and Amber for a little bit, but feel free to chime in also yourself anytime. And we will get back, especially during the Q&A section. Or if you have something to say and you want to bring it up, feel free. I've already told Amber, interrupt me. I'll tell you the same thing because I talk a lot.
Yeah, and feel free to call on me. I'll stay muted because I don't know what's too loud, and I can answer any questions.
You the man, Dalen. You got this. What a guy. So you guys have any questions for Dalen as an apprentice, go ahead and ask. Or Amber. See, the other thing is about Amber. Amber, why don't you tell us? You didn't say that in the intro or in your. Okay. So why don't you tell us also, not only you're our receptionist, you were the number one pick out of 30 plus people applicants.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it was you. It was easy. It was not even.
I'm so excited.
It wasn't. It was by like miles.
I was really nervous towards the end of that whole process. Yeah, because I got sick right before like my second interview.
Oh yes, that's right.
And then I couldn't come, and then I didn't hear back from you guys for a while, and I was like, I fucked up.
I was getting worried.
I fucked up.
I thought we fucked up. I was like, oh damn.
Like,
so why don't you tell them? Also, one of the reasons why you're here is because you help a lot. Obviously, you're the brains of the operation, but also we've been teaching you how to pierce.
Yes.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Okay.
Everybody watching.
I don't know what parts I should talk about.
So let's start right at the beginning. So you started first, obviously, as a receptionist, but then asked, and what has happened since then?
Okay. So I asked because there's a bajillion walk-ins that we get for piercings. And obviously the artists are super busy like all of the time. So I came to Josh and was like, hey, I don't really have any interest in tattooing, but I would totally be down to learn how to pierce. Like putting holes in people's skins. Cool. That sounds amazing. And yeah, so then I came in and learned all about the sanitation, cleaning, setting up, all of that stuff. That was super important stuff, right? How to keep myself clean and safe, how to keep the clients clean and safe, and did some practicing on some artificial skin, right? We went through what piercings will feel like what for me for going through and doing it.
Which, by the way, the artificial skin's really just for tattooing typically. But we use it also to shove needles through for piercing because it is still very, it's still lifelike, but it's very similar and also gives us a nice, good consistency because piercing has that nice push through with that needle, like a push pin almost. So it really works well, in case you guys are wondering. Also, I should say too, for those of you maybe interested in tattooing and or piercing or both, I guess, is me as a mentor, me as a teacher, as an artist and piercer myself, I've been doing it for over 20 years. I can tell almost right away if somebody's going to be cut out for it, at least in terms of whether they can stomach it or not. Because tattooing and piercing is not for everybody, especially piercing. Piercing is that one where, man, you could just tell in somebody's face, they're like, nah, I don't know if I could do it. I'm like, then you probably can't. Because they just either have it or they don't, and it's pretty clear to them that they know they don't have the stomach for it. It's probably like surgery to some extent, right? People just know there's no way they're going into that. So it's easy for someone like me, but it's not maybe so easy for people like you or someone who's never done it. So if you guys have questions regarding that too towards the end, that's a good question to ask. Like, how would somebody know? We can get into that later. So that'd be really cool. So how's it been so far with your apprenticeship?
It's been so fun.
Yeah?
Yeah. I actually really enjoy the setup process. I think it's cool. So I've been able to set up for a bunch of the piercings that have come in.
Which I love.
I am now allowed to pierce lobes with supervision.
Yep. So we do need candidates.
Yes. Volunteer, please.
Yes. So please. Part of being an apprentice and part of getting an apprenticeship is learning as fast as you can so you can make yourself useful.
Yeah. And
that's a big deal because a lot of people don't realize this, that if you're coming into the industry and it's your first time entering any industry, you've never had any previous, like, do you think a lot of your work experience is absolutely translated into what you're able to do and how easy you're able to pick up, let's say, receptionist job is obvious because you've done this before, but let's say the piercing part, do you think a lot of that has to do, like your people skills, your interpersonal skills, like really matters?
Oh, definitely.
And so like without it would be hard because you're teaching them how to pierce, which is or even tattoo. And without it, you'd have to learn everything plus that, which is very difficult.
It would be, it would be.
I've taught a lot of people from ground zero. And I will tell you this, it's difficult. Like Dalen that we had on here a little bit, and we'll get him back on here shortly, especially when you get to the Q&A, is, has previously worked and done plenty of jobs and has himself been a photographer, so he still is. And he is very artistic and creative. So having that knowledge and having that experience working with customers and clients, huge plus. Whereas if you're green, if this is your first job, which is most people that come to my classes and most people that I teach, most people that I've apprenticed, this is like their first intro to like adulthood. Oh, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's very difficult when that's the case. So, like, if I were to say one thing, if somebody's not giving you an apprenticeship and you're wanting to tattoo, go get a job. I know that sounds so crappy and not sexy, not cool, but I'm telling you right now, go get a job in the meantime and learn those skills because they will absolutely only help you. And even more importantly, they're going to help whoever the hell you're about to bug day in and day and night about learning. So do yourself and your mentor a favor and go get that experience.
Yeah, there is. I mean, people can have bad experiences, but there's no such thing as bad experience, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because you're still learning from it. Like, I've had some crappy jobs, but I feel like it still gave me, even at the very least, like coping mechanisms with how to cooperate with people that you don't like, because you have to do that from time to time, regardless. That's just part of life, right? So yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, get a job.
So get a job.
Which is kind of funny because we'll get into this a little bit. That one part of apprenticing is, especially tattooing or piercing or doing this in the industry, being a professional, you're going to have to get over the employee mindset. And we'll talk a little bit about what an employee. We won't go super deep into it because we're going to cover a lot of stuff, and then we're going to get into the Q&A part. But we'll get into some of it. So if you guys have more questions, because there's no way, literally, we're going to be able to cover it to depth, all the things we're going to graze over. But then that's where the Q&A starts. And I'm going to tell you right now, this leads to much more interaction with us. So if you guys have questions, they will be answered in the future. And then also we'll have more courses and classes, and we do in-person stuff. So you guys should totally be there. Matter of fact, tonight we actually invited people to come in person, and nobody did. And that's cool because everybody's online, and I'm totally cool with that as well. Gives me more tools to work with. This is like where I feel comfortable too, by the way. Like, I feel super good here. Like, being in front of 10 people, it doesn't bother me, but I really like this. I think it's because when I'm here, that's why. Because I get dad jokes, I get buttons, I get all kinds of cool sound effects, and I get everybody watching and chiming in. So that's really cool. Dane Bear says, one of my kids is supposed to be on here. She's very talented. I hope she is. And if she is, she should speak up. So I'll try to say this right. Kelani, really cool name, said, what would I have to do to start classes? I'm one of Dane Bear's. Oh, there, we just got it in the wrong order and coming from two different platforms. Kelani, thanks for being on here. I hope I'm saying your name right. If you want to help us with that enunciation, I'm totally up for a correction. But what would you have to do? So, Amber, what would you say?
Says, what would I have to do to start classes? Well, you're starting one. You're in one. So you did the first step. That's for sure. And then, yeah, I would say from here, just listen, pay attention, and ask questions at the end. Because by the end of this, you should know what you need to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what this little 2-hour event will be. So we're 30 minutes in. Let's get into the nitty gritty since you're on here, Kehlani. And we appreciate you being here. So, and I apparently said it right. So let's give myself a little round of applause because I usually never get it right. Okay, this is going to be a lot. How do we start? One is there's a PDF.
Yes.
If you guys did not download the PDF, that's fine. Stick with us. But there is a PDF available through the...
It was emailed.
Email. So get on our newsletter. Kalani, if you want to really do this, get on our newsletter. Just go to our website. Go to thetattoovault.com, and we'll show you that right here. So if you go here to thetattoovault.com, you're going to get all the information you need. Now, this website is still under construction. It's brand new, and I'm bringing it to you really through here. So everything you need to know is going to happen now. But that website will give you all the updates in the future with whether it's classes or information, and the PDF as well. So sign up and you'll get this download, and it will give you, why don't you show that to them? Just kind of briefly, because we're going to go through this in the slideshow/guide. So there you go. You'll get a lot of that without the nifty little sketch drawings.
It's very full of practical information.
Okay, and I'm actually going to switch to Dalen if Dalen's ready, just for a minute, just to see if there's anything we talked about for a second, or talk about too his apprenticeship and starting, since he introduced himself a little bit, and then we will start this slideshow as well. So let's get Dalen on here for a moment. And Dalen, why don't you tell us if there's anything in the last few minutes that we talked about that brought any ideas, questions, or any responses from you, since you've had a lot of experience with us in the shop recently. Is there anything that sparked any ideas while we were briefing everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned a couple of good topics, such as like how do you get started? At least with us as a shop, we do recommend subscribing to the newsletter so that you can be the first to know when these classes are announced, because we try to do them every so often whenever we have that free time, those free Saturday mornings, and just making sure that as soon as that's announced, you subscribe, because those seats fly like hotcakes, as I'm sure
Right.
Josh could tell you.
And
And so
and you're
go
gonna
ahead.
learn. You're gonna learn so much. I don't know if you just said this, but bring your notes. Bring your notepads.
Yeah,
And if you're watching
yeah.
now, you should have your notepad out and ready to write down things because you're going to learn a lot. So that's
And
something good.
absolutely, having something to take notes with, whether it's your iPad, whether it's the paper pencil, something, because at least I went to a couple of the classes, maybe three or four of them, I can't remember off the top of my head, but every time I brought notes, and every time there was something new that I didn't have from my previous notes. And what had happened was, after the first class, went home and you kind of look over the notes, and and we'll get into it later today, kind of the steps you can take as far as like certifications, your portfolio, just your people skills, your marketing. And I just went in and I went and got my bloodborne pathogen certification.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that more a bit later, but just making sure you're taking notes and then you're actually looking them over.
Perfect. Thank you, Dalen. I appreciate that. Okay, so we're going to go now to the slideshow and show you guys. Is it okay to call it a slideshow?
It is, I think.
Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, we're sliding.
It's a presentation.
It's a presentation. We're going to slide through the show, and we're going to give you guys a bunch of information. So here we go. This is the exciting stuff, because I've never done this before. And without Amber and without Lele's help, really without Dalen's help, honestly, without everybody's help that I receive, I appreciate it so much. I almost wish I could have a whole episode where I could just thank you guys, because you already know we all stay busy. We all got a lot to do, and it's impossible to have done any of this without you guys. Okay, so here we go. We're going to slide through a few of these things. Let's get to the first one. So this is part of the PDF, basically verbatim, right? Like this is
for the most part,
anything
yeah.
in the PDF you're going to get right here. So if there's anything we skip over and you wish you had it and you're not taking all the notes in the world, then go get the PDF and or message us and we'll hook you up. So here we go. Breaking into the industry. Why don't you go ahead and read all these for me, and then I will go over the first ones.
You want me to read
Yeah,
them?
just
for you?
read them for me.
So everything that we're covering today includes how to become an apprentice, sterilization and why it's so important, administrative tasks like taxes and the difference between a sole proprietorship and LLC, art and art forms, tattooing and the tools used, and then why networking, marketing, and branding are so important.
That was perfect. There's the intro right there. So this is all the stuff we're going to go over, and like these are bullet pointed, but I will tell you right now, there is a lot to all this, and we're going to go through a lot. So let's just start here with breaking into the industry, conveniently called the Tattoo Vault. That was Layla's idea, by the way.
It's a beautiful name. She did great with that.
Breaking into the industry.
Yeah.
Unlocking the secrets of tattooing.
I love it.
Me too, actually. It made me feel really good. I was like, oh, man, I got so many brains around me. Now I can just... every once in a while, at least. So becoming an apprentice, this is a big deal, because a lot of people say, how do you start tattooing? And I will tell you right now, there's lots of ways to start tattooing. And I will rattle off a few. The two that I was told was move to California or go to prison. That was literally my first response from a tattoo shop. And I wanted to learn. I was very eager and had a backpack full of drawings and, nothing but can-do attitude. They told me to move to California. I lived in Oregon. Move to California or go to prison. And that literally is still primarily the way people learn is prison. So I shouldn't say primarily. Now it's internet, but that's really how people learned in the past was really that way. They had a lot of time on their hands, needless to say. Anyway, so becoming an apprentice is a big deal, because you could also just buy some stuff online. I'm not necessarily giving you advice in this regard, but you could buy a bunch of stuff online and start screwing up the homies and, go that route too. And I'm not going to necessarily knock on it, but it's not the fastest nor the most effective route. And if you're here watching it from us now, then you got the best foot in the door so far. Okay, so becoming an apprentice. There's so much I want to say to all this, but let's just start with the first one here, which is adding value. This is a big one, because this is where you have to shift from thinking like an employee and start thinking like an entrepreneur, or start thinking like a business owner. Because as tattoo artists, we are all business owners. We are either sole proprietors or at least businesses or entities working for ourselves, sometimes with employees, but most of the time, we're not getting a paycheck from somebody. We're not working for hourly wages. We're working, providing a service. and our customers essentially are our bosses in the sense that we get almost contracted out by our customers, right? They're paying us to do a job, which is different than employees paying you to show up in 9 to 5 or whatever schedule is and meet their training requirements. It's totally different. So adding value is a new idea for people who have never done anything like this and have only been employees, because if you walk into a shop, the number one mistake people make, I'm kind of jumping the gun a little, but the number one mistake is they don't have a portfolio to show. You want to learn how to be a tattoo artist and you don't have a portfolio. That's crazy talk. And so don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. Get a portfolio together if you are taking this serious, because nobody's going to take you serious if you walk in empty-handed, and rightfully so. You don't deserve their time. That's just the truth. So don't do it. It's disrespectful to yourself and others. Get your portfolio ready. And we'll go over that in a little bit too, what a portfolio looks like.
That's trying to get a job without an application or resume.
Exactly right. Yeah, go and try to get a job and be like, oh, can I fill out an application? And you have nothing on it.
Mm-hmm.
They would look at it and think you were just joking.
Yeah.
It's disrespectful. So get a portfolio together. Okay, we'll talk about that too in a little bit if you have questions regarding portfolios. So in terms of adding value, here's the second part. So not only have a portfolio together, but don't ask for anything. And this is going to be a mind shift. So you'll maybe have some questions regarding this, but the mind shift is this. Do not, if you want an apprenticeship, walk into a shop and say, can I have an apprenticeship? Do not walk into a shop and say, hey, I'd like to work for you guys. What can I do? Think about it. These are all asks, not ads. So we're going to talk in a little bit about what the ads are. So yes, add value. That's probably the thing you should write down. If anybody's writing any of this down, you should be. Adding value is probably one of the key components of tonight's conversation. Don't waste others' times. That's kind of really what we're touching on there. Making yourself useful is really the point of, adding value is making yourself useful before you ask for anything, right? That's kind of a big deal. Making yourself useful, it could look like this, and there's a lot of stuff you can do here. This is really, really key, is making sure that before you ask for the shop to give you anything, whether it's information or opportunity, make sure you already know how to do something in their environment that adds them value. And I'll give you a couple hints. One of them, and it's labeled here as be a customer, but one of them is they're a business. They want to make money. Bring them business and get them money. Make yourself valuable to them as a customer first. Because one of the secrets to business is be a good customer, you'll be a good owner. Because if you're a bad customer, you're going to be a shitty owner. That's really good advice I've heard from somebody. It's not mine, but I adopted it for sure. Also, Amber, if you see anything in the comments, let me know that I should get to. So some of the times I'll have you read these things because that's when I'm scrolling through the old comments.
Got it. That's fair.
Okay.
I'm learning.
Next one is promote. So in terms of adding value, Amber, why don't you kind of give us your 2 cents on what you think that could mean for apprentices or people wanting to work in a shop?
Well, you're going to need practice, right? You're going to need people, and you're going to want them coming in not only to support you, but to support the place with which you're wanting to, pursue this career at. And so you need to get it out there, and you need to not be shy or afraid of what anybody is going to say and or think and or getting turned down, right? And you can show that through promoting, and not just yourself, but everybody else who's there, and getting involved in other things that maybe that shop is doing or whatnot that you can help promote as well.
Yeah. So promoting is a really big deal because it really is key. If people don't know about you, people can't get tattooed by you. And if people don't know about you, and even if you're not tattooing, if they don't know about your journey, then it's really hard to bring them into the shop that you're trying to work in and even bring the shop value in terms of customers or even clients in the future. So offer, don't ask. That's really what we're talking about here. That's the next one here. Offer, don't ask. If you just do this, if you have to say, can I, then you're asking. If you have to say, like, who walks into a business, if you think about it, how to add value, which is really the key component of this section. If you really have to ask, can I, or will you, or anything like that, if you go into a business, that's not how you add value to a business. You go in and you become either a customer, or you bring them customers, or you bring them business, or you make yourself valuable. Let's say you have an art portfolio. Little hint, artists love art. Everybody loves art. So bring in some really cool art, and guess what you're going to do? You're going to get everybody's attention. Have you been there yet when somebody's actually brought a portfolio? What was that like for you, like for somebody to come in and bring actual art for you to see?
So you get curious, right? Like you get kind of nosy. And even though I am not one to be like, have an opinion on it,
Yeah.
you can still kind of see everyone like peeking and hovering, and you got kind of like surrounded. That way everybody could look through it. People get excited. They do get really freaking excited to see that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there's a good hack. Bring a really good portfolio. And if you think, oh, but my art's not that good, bring as good of a portfolio as you can. Get your portfolio together. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit. So being a customer, again, we did graze over this a little bit, but there's a good way in. Don't ask for anything. Just go in and get a tattoo, buy a t-shirt, buy a hat, bring customers to them, promote them, tag them. You guys are watching this. Think about this right now. And this is a cool little plug, or at least a cool little hack for me. You guys are watching this right now, you ladies and gentlemen. Some of you, a lot of you want to be tattoo artists or piercers, or you have questions regarding it, or you know someone who does. You can share this episode. You can tag people in it. You can comment on it. You can share it later. You can take a screenshot. Here's what you can do right now. I'll show you something really cool. Look at these lovely faces. I know, super cheesy. I am a dad, so get over it. You can take a screenshot of us right now, and then you can tag us in it later on your social medias. So if you have an audience, whether it's big or small, you can tag us and say, watch this episode tonight. Super cool. Here's what I got out of it. You could even go as far as to making a video tagging it and saying, look, that is getting on our radar, and that's anybody's radar for any shop, any place you want to work in. This is, and by the way, this is obviously is something that transcends even just the tattoo industry. This could be for anybody really on any endeavor. So think about that. So be a customer. And we already talked about no more employee mindset. So we'll go to the next one. Why don't you go ahead and read these for us?
You got it. So, as we've already talked about, you need a portfolio. Do not embarrass yourself by showing up somewhere and saying you want to be a tattoo artist and have no proof that you don't know how to draw nothing. I said that really. But you don't know how to draw nothing.
Yeah, you don't got it.
You don't got nothing. And make it like professional and pretty and or beautiful or whatever word you want to use, right? But like make it look legit, because then people are going to take you freaking seriously.
Right.
And
that can be simple.
It can be simple.
Very
this
black
even
and
says,
sleek.
yeah, 7 to 12 finished art pieces. And yes, simple, black, sleek, but professional, not crumbled papers falling out of a folder with
loose.
Yeah, or just like stuff that you're like rummaging through because you forgot where you put it or something, like together. Nice, beautiful. And this makes a good first impression, right? You go into the shop, you have this thing, that you have created, right? I've heard that all tattoo artists like to create.
Yep, they like to make shit.
So create a beautiful portfolio. And then your best or favorite pieces should be towards the front.
Yeah. And when you go into a shop and you want to be an apprentice and you want to work there, before you eat, and this is kind of jumping a lot here because there is way too much to cover in an hour or two. Make a good first impression. You should know who everybody is in the shop. You should know about the shop. Anything that's available online. You should be there because you want to learn from them. You shouldn't be going into a shop because you're going to all 10 of them in your town, or 100 if you're in Fresno, and just asking, right? Like it's just not a good idea. It doesn't look good, and it's again, I think, very disrespectful. These people wrap their whole lives up in doing this craft, and not to toot their horns or anything and make them out to be rock stars, but give them the credit that's due. These people put a lot on the line, to be able to do this and make themselves successful in this industry. And it's difficult, right? It's very, very difficult. So no doubt about it. It's not easy. So don't go in there and be disrespectful without not just a portfolio, but make sure you know who they are. Like, make sure you know the artists. Make sure you know their names. Make sure you're at least well aware of what they're doing. What's their mission? Like, if you're going into this guy that was just on my show, Damn It Woody. Woody's a super cool guy. If you guys didn't see that episode on Artistic Freedom recently, if you went to a shop and you didn't know who Woody is and you wanted to learn from him, that would just be silly. Like, he's all over the internet. You can find him. He has tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of views, and he's a super rad guy. But to go in there and not even know who he is at all, it just shows your lack of effort completely, because he's everywhere to be seen. Same with us. If you've been to our website, we have plenty of YouTube videos linked on there. If you didn't even know that we had a channel, you're not subscribed to it, you're not watching it, it's just such easy, low-hanging fruit for you to partake in that I think it's just silly not to. So again, going back to the portfolio part, make a good first impression with your portfolio, just like you are making an impression with yourself. And then your best pieces should always be at the front. That's key. A lot of people think they're going to save the frosting or the spice or the cherry on top to the end. Not good. Don't do that. Why do you think that is?
Because what you see first is what's going to stick in your mind right at the beginning.
Yeah, that sets the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the whole tone, the whole mood is set by that first piece. So get creative, but at the same time, show off your work and show your best first. Let's just say the person's really busy and they can only see 2 or 3, and those first 2 or 3 aren't that good. They're going to keep moving on, and they have something else to do, and you're just going to get bypassed, especially if it's a high performing shop. So we're not always we're not always available to help you guys, and so walk in there prepared. Before I switch to the next one, let's go over some of these. Why don't you go ahead and read? I think we got to this, but go ahead and read Kalani's right here.
She said, I wanted to start classes ASAP for sure, and hopefully do my apprenticeship once I turn 18 in July.
Very cool. And you do have to be 18 to work in a tattoo shop. So that is a key point. Let's go to this here. This is a good one to address.
Oh, I did that. LOL. Bought a gun online and tattooed fake skin and myself. Don't call it a gun.
Yeah, never call it a gun, especially if you want to be respected in the industry. Just call it a machine. That's what it is. No, for some reason, people just don't like the word gun. I actually don't quite get it, although I do think machine sounds better. So just call it a machine. But I'm not going to say don't learn on your own as long as you're being safe and doing it on fake skin. But I would say if you don't know what you're doing and you have the opportunity to learn professionally and the information is available, please don't hurt people or yourself. And I'm not talking about pain for tattooing. I mean about disease and cleanliness. Go ahead and read this one for me.
It says, thank you for this, sir. I have to hit the gym, but I'll be back and ready to learn.
Well, Dissident, thanks for joining us.
Dissident.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Hockney?
And let's go to Hockney M.
Hockney says, you mentioned the different ways to get started. Would you recommend tattoo schools that I've seen around?
Interesting question. Look, if you want to invest in your future and be a tattoo artist, I will tell you right now, you are going to make you're going to spend a lot of effort, a lot of time, and possibly even a lot of money. And a lot of it's not going to pay off. But that's part of the endeavor. I'm a business owner. I can tell you right now, most of the things I tried don't work. So that's just part of learning and exploring. So yes, it's a very good idea, but definitely, spend what you can afford, or if something's really worth it and you're sure, then you should definitely find a way to pay for it, because a lot of people won't give you the opportunities to be an apprentice. And so schools aren't a bad idea. I don't know about all of them, but I will say this. In building this website, I did a lot of research and I bought a lot of programs, a lot of the cheap ones, like $10 now to learn this and $50 for my course to learn my workflow. Man, I'm going to tell you, a lot of it's just these people just want to make money off you. And I get it. It's a business. It's selling information. I plan on selling information, but I plan on selling information that I know actually works. I'm not here to blow smoke. I really want people to actually get something out of it. And so you have to be really careful, but there's always risk. Just don't be scared. And if you're ready and you're committed, then it shouldn't be too much of a bruise or a bump to take, because you're probably going to get something out of it. Josh is on here. Thanks, Josh, for joining us. And he's saying, don't ask. I've worked with Josh, and I can tell you right now, I've definitely drilled it into his head. Any of my apprentices, I've drilled it into the head not to ask, because that's not how you get an apprenticeship. Don't ask for anything. Just add. Go ahead and read this one for me from Kaylani.
Kaylani says, I only have a few pieces of artwork, but I have been wanting to start creating new sketches and portraits for a portfolio. Do it.
Yep, that's it. Just keep making and creating. Just build your repertoire of skills and talents, and just keep going. Becoming undeniable as an apprentice, or really as an artist or a tattooer in the future, is really going to be up to you and the speed in which you move. Getting shit done, making things, and moving forward, and just keep going. Sometimes you just have to abandon, old art and move forward with new art, whatever it is you're doing. Especially if you're an artist, you're well aware of this, that art is almost never finished. It's always abandoned. It's actually a famous quote. Can't remember from who, but art is never finished. It's always abandoned. You got to do that. You got to move forward, and you have to make moves. And that's going to be your learning curve is going to come from making mistakes. So that's why I always tell people, and you'll hear at the end, to F. I can't even really say it tonight because we might have some people underage, but you'll see it. I won't say it, but you might see some profanity at the end, because it is part of our program. There's a little bit of profanity involved. Okay, so let's go ahead and read Josh's for me.
Cool. Josh says, be humble, but put in the work. What you put in is what you get, and take it step by step. No jumping.
There you go. Very, very good advice. Thank you for saying that, Josh. Okay. Danbury is saying her specialty is portraits and realism. That's really good, and that's also very hard. And I can tell you there's no bigger learning curve than being really good at like portraiture or painting or realism and then trying to take it to skin, because you did a lot of work to try to figure out how to be a portrait artist or do realism. And now you're going to have to do a lot of work to learn how to put that in the skin. I mean, it's a good starting point, but you're asking to do some of the hardest stuff. So hunker down for years and years of work and grinding. And let's get to Kaylani's here.
She says, yes, I've had many pieces I procrastinated in finishing and are still unfinished to this day.
Story of an artist. Okay, let's get to the next slide. So let's switch to here. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to get to this. And Dalen, we're going to bring you on here in a second and ask you if at this point there's any input you have, because as an apprentice, he's been working with us for a while, and he has been to all the classes like you mentioned. So there's going to be some stuff he has opinions on. So just to put you on the spot, Dalen, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on and see if there's any input you have based off what we said so far. So Dalen, what's
Yeah,
up?
no worries. So for me, my approach was a little different, like in being of value, because like that's kind of what we were saying. Don't ask, give, and don't be a nuisance. There's a little balance to it. You brought up great points of like bringing in customers, because at the end of the day, they are a business. So like finding ways to bring them in customers by sharing their artwork on your social media. Everyone has social media. It's the click of two buttons. But my approach was taking this skill that I already had previously, which was photography, and offering that in like, hey, I can take behind the scenes photos, because I don't know if you guys are aware, but when artists are tattooing, it's kind of unsanitary to go grab a phone, try to record something, take the gloves off. It's just a hindrance. It's kind of annoying. And so having someone there dedicated that can take professional, high quality photos behind the scenes to be used ultimately as content, to get more customers. That was my personal in. But yeah, if not, that's not the case for everyone. So willing to pay to get a tattoo by them, because obviously, if you have a trouble with that, and you're like, I don't really want to get tattooed by them. I don't know if you'd want them to teach you. If you don't admire their work enough to get tattooed by them, maybe you wouldn't want to spend the next year or two, you know, learning from them. And then if you have other skills, like the other apprentice in the shop, Lele, she is a tech wizard, website design and all that. That was her, and she was of value. Hey, Josh, I see you got this website. We can revamp it for you for free. And, just being of value. And like I said, not everyone has these other skills. I had previous jobs prior to with the photo stuff, so it translated pretty well. But starting off small, sharing the stuff, bringing in them business, all great, great things to
Dalen, that
catch
was a
attention.
perfect attention to detail there, because that's something I haven't mentioned yet, and you just nailed it on the head. So thanks for saying that. And that's exactly that. Find what are your superpowers? What are the skills you bring to the table, and make yourself useful. We all have something. I don't mean this disrespectfully, but some people are really nice to look at. So use that to garner attention in positive ways. Hopefully, if you're really good at making art, if you're really good like Dalen is at taking photography, or Lele, one of our other apprentices, at making websites and online design, make yourself useful. And I mean, how can you be denied if you come in with a great portfolio and you're well put together and you know who the shop is and you've done all the research and you've tagged them in posts and you've screenshotted these moments that we do that, and or go back and do it later on. When you do these things, what happens is you add so much value, you become undeniable. If there's an option for them to have you work with them, then you will be undeniable. So that's just pure gold. And thank you so much, Dalen, for sharing that. We're going to get to the next slide. So we'll jump into that and go back to this screen here. Let's see. This is the first time doing this, and I feel like it's going really well.
It's going great.
It's awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. If you haven't given us a thumbs up yet on this stream, do so. I see a lot of people watching and only a few thumbs up. So go ahead and send those. We appreciate them. The support's due. Also, we should real quick before I get to this slide and read it. We have merch for the first time for this show, for Artistic Freedom, and for the shop, or for really everything we do now. Where can people get that, and why should they go there?
They should go to highsierratattooco.com if they would like to shop online. But I would prefer anybody who's around here to come in and see me and buy it in the shop. That would be cool. Yeah, come buy it. Come try it on. Come see the hats. It all looks so cool. It looks so cool.
She folds really well.
I fold extremely well.
She's a master
and I'm
folder.
not even mad about bragging about that.
Nobody is.
It's beautiful.
And when people see
that
it, they mention it.
That display is beautiful.
I give you full credit.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead and read Kaylani's here.
Okay, she said, I think my biggest thing was people telling me nobody would want to hire me or accept me because I have many tattoos. But I've always known as a tattoo artist, I wouldn't ever be judged, and art is genuinely my peace of mind.
Okay, interesting. So you have to grow thick skin in this industry. You really do. And it's a really big deal to not listen to too many people's look. As an artist, so many people are going to think you're fascinating because all people, I mean, the majority, 99.9% of people are not artists. So people are going to love your work. And of course, because today's social media sharing world, everybody's a critic now, even though they're not artists and they don't make it and they don't partake. Anybody can be a bystander in the crowd watching the game and have their opinions on what the players should do. But you're going to have to just shut your ears to it. It does you no good, whether it's, and I truly believe this, whether it's praise or whether it's criticism or whether it's just pure negativity. I don't think it was positive. I really don't think it matters. If you're an artist, you're going to make things. Nobody's going to stop you. You can't keep yourself from it. And not only that, but all it's going to do, considering other people's opinions of you, all it's going to do is stunt you to some degree. It really shouldn't register. The best you could do is not care too much about it and just keep making. In regards to art, at least. Maybe in tattooing is different because there's, liability involved. So be careful there, of course, and learn from the best and just come to us or find a shop that's reputable and ask us for help and we will help you. There's no reason not to use this as a resource. So she said, I knew as a tattoo artist, I wouldn't ever be judged and art is genuinely my peace of mind. So that's not true.
Her having tattoos.
Yeah, that's not true. People judge no matter where they're from. I don't care if you're a tattoo shop or a piercer or you're, Sally working at the gas station. It really doesn't matter. People judge. That's just part of it. Again, just grow that thick skin and just be of no concern. I know I'm assuming, Kaylani, you're young. You're going to have to go through.
She turns 18 in July.
There you go. So you're going to have to go through the ringer and grow that thick skin. And the only way to do it, which I've had to teach apprentices plenty of times, especially when they're brand new and they have no previous experience in any industry, is growing thick skin. You got to get over it. People are not your best friends. And you're working with, now I'm not saying people are always terrible. Most of the time they come to tattoo shops, they're excited. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. But there's always going to be those people and you're going to have to learn how to work with them and manage them. So don't let them get to you. And if they do, just keep putting yourselves in scenarios where you can learn how to grow that thick skin. Don't take abuse. Never be somebody's, doormat. But you will have to take some punches. You will have to take punches, but never be somebody's doormat. That's advice I could give you for that. Josh, thanks for being on here. It sounds like he's jumping off. So let's go ahead and read this next part, which is becoming an apprentice. That word does get me. Have you ever tried to spell that? Like when you're typing it, I always forget there's two P's and then I'm like sitting there saying, okay, come on, spell check it for me. And I get it wrong every time.
That's your dyslexia.
It really is. And you're just going to have to absolutely love me for it because it's part of the deal. So let's go there.
So learning. I don't know as much about this though as you do because obviously I don't tattoo.
Right.
But there's single pass fine lines first. So that's what you have to practice first. And then you learn packing and filling ink. And then blending, followed by shading. And then time plus effort equals faster, better results, which is true for anything in life, by the way.
Very true.
The more time and effort you put into something and in whatever time frame you're looking at, but still the more time and effort you put into it, the better the result's going to be.
Absolutely. So
you can only be bad at something for so long.
Sure.
So if you run out of that faster, then you get better, right?
Yep. Get all the shit out.
Yeah.
Yes. That it is true. It's part of our motto. We'll get to at the end. Let's go ahead and read. We're going to go into detail on these here in a minute, but let's go ahead and read this one here.
From Hockney?
Yep.
He said, do you have to have tattoos to be a tattoo artist? Do shops see someone with no tattoos is not ready to be an apprentice? That's a good question.
It's a really good question. And the answer is, this is art, dude. There's no rules. Like there isn't. Anybody who tries to give you rules on art and creativity, screw them. Forget about it. They're wrong. I don't care if you're a photographer like Dalen. I don't care if you're internet design wizard like Lele. I don't care if you're a shirt folding, genius when it comes to answering phones and taking clients walking in the shop and speaking to them in such a professional, concise manner. No matter what, when it comes to this stuff, do you, and who cares? Like, if it just, who cares? Who's like, let me ask you this: who's setting the rules, dude? Hockney, I don't know if you're a guy or a girl, but who's setting the rules? Who? And this industry shouldn't have that sort of stringent detail to it, in my opinion. Now, if you're asking in the past, how did it look? 100%. If you didn't learn from a master, you weren't learning at all. And if you did learn on your own, and people asked you who was the master you learned under, and you didn't say the correct name, they would absolutely write you off and run you out of town and do maybe even worse things to at least get you completely unable to work in their area. So that's in the past. Now, I'm not saying that's dead. It's still around. But, well, there's a nuance to it. I will just leave it at this. The tattoo industry is very rogue still. It's very unregulated in the sense, not regarding health and sanitary reasons or aspects, but it's still a very rogue thing. It's art. It's subjective. You do you. So do some people care? Sure. Do some people not care? Sure. Don't let it concern you. It shouldn't concern you. Maybe it's an interesting question to people, and I do agree, but it just shouldn't matter. If you don't want to have tattoos, but you want to be a tattoo artist, awesome. If you want to have a ton of tattoos and you don't want to be a tattoo artist, awesome. So do your thing. I hope that answers, or at least suffices, because there's a lot of opinions that people will have about that, no doubt. So that's probably why you asked. Go ahead and read what Brody Jade said.
Brody Jade, I love you so much. She said, Amber, you're doing a great job. Thank you. Thank you.
Kaylani's saying she has to jump off, and is there any way to watch it later? Yes, it's going to be posted here on YouTube. I know you're on Facebook now, but you could be on YouTube and on my channel, which is Joshua A. Farmer, and it's going to be up forever. So you can rewatch this whole thing, and even some of your comments come up. So you can rewatch the whole thing or start off at this point, which we're exactly 57 minutes in. So if you jump off now, watch at that point, and you'll catch up with everything. So thanks for being on here. We appreciate you. Let's go ahead and read that one too.
You're doing great at relating to things in the outside tattoo realm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so enough about you. Let's talk about this slideshow that you also made. So one of the reasons it's in this exact order in regards to becoming an apprentice and learning is single pass lines. They're the hardest thing to learn. I'm going to tell you right now, learning single pass, meaning once time over, nice, bold, thick, beautiful, clean, crisp, non-crunchy. That's the word we use it in the shop. Is crunchy. Nice, beautiful, crisp, single pass lines is the hardest, I think, absolutely the hardest thing to learn. And it's nothing like drawing. The canvas of skin is just so different. So learning that, I actually like to believe, is 75% of the feat. And that's why packing and fillings afterwards, because I actually believe you can tell a bad artist when they can't line for crap, but their packing and filling is immaculate, because packing and filling is kind of easier. So that's why it's second. You would think that should be first, right? Well, no, because you can pack and fill, but what are you going to pack and fill if you don't know how to line? Like, it just looks silly, especially if you're a traditional tattooer like Dalen wants to be. And a lot of everybody in the shop has done traditional tattoos. You're going to be asked to do it. So you need to learn how to line, especially when you start, because that's primarily what you'll be doing at first. There's not a whole lot you could do with just packing and filling. You're going to need some lines. And then also after that, blending and shading. Blending and shading really, to me, is the same thing. It's just blending could be one tone or one hue, and shading would be blending from that then tone or hue to another one. So it's just a continuation of the same process. But we won't bore you guys with the details of that. I know you want to know more about the actual tattoo process itself and how to learn that. But when it comes to learning this in the shop as an apprentice, the first thing you're going to do is draw a lot, mop a lot, sweep a lot. You're going to learn a lot, listen, take notes. You're going to not just ask questions, but you're going to keep your ears peeled and you're going to make yourself super useful. You're going to tag, you're going to research, you're going to find everything about the shop. You're going to do all the things we told you to do. You're going to review your notes later on and go, man, I'm a wizard at this. How could these people ever deny me? We deny people all the time, by the way. because they simply, they don't do these things. They just don't do them. Basic stuff. And then what Amber said, time, effort, faster, better results. Learn from people who know what they're doing. That's the secret to success. if you guys want to be really good at something, all you have to do is get around the people who are really good at doing it. And this whole episode would be absolutely useless if you would just go do that. Everything I say from here on out would be absolutely useless if you could just learn from people who know what they're doing. Just go do that, and you need to not watch this ever again or any further. But, what's the but? What do you think the but is?
Oh,
The
God.
back. What do you think the but is to that? So learn from people who know what they're doing. Great, but there's a big problem with that.
They already know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing,
Mhm.
but how are you going to get around them? Just because you're going to get around the people, I'm telling you, the fast
So you
track
got
to
to
all
put
this.
yourself out there.
Yeah, to get yourself out there, most y'all are too scared. You're just too worried about what people think. Do I have to have tattoos? I'm not trying to pick on you, but this is a good example. Do I have to have tattoos? Do I have to be covered? Should I be pierced? Do I have to be cool? Do I have to have long hair? Do I have to be this color or height or weight or super charming and dashing and handsome? The answer is yes, you do. You have to be all those things. It really helps. But if you're not, then I'm going to tell you right now, getting around those people and finding a way in, this is all the stuff we're talking about, is getting you guys prepared to be able to do this. Learn from people who know what they're doing. That's the secret. You need to know nothing else besides that. But unfortunately, they're not going to let you around them because you're not offering any value. You're not doing any of the things we're saying. So they're not going to let you around. Although that's the key. If you could just figure that out, which is everything we're dispelling here, then you're good. So let's go to the next slide. Why don't you go ahead and read these for us? Or this. Read this.
Oh, I was like,
Do you
what
know?
did I-
Have we explained this to you yet?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so why don't you explain this to the viewers?
Okay. So when you start out as an apprentice, 90% of that is learning. Learning how to clean, learning how to sanitize, learning where stuff goes, how to set up, learning the art form, the practices, all of it. And then 10% of that is actual execution of what you are allowed to do, I
Okay.
think might be a good word for
What's
it.
appropriate for you to do?
Yeah, there we go. What's appropriate for you to do at your level. And then the end goal, right, is that 90% of what you're doing is now execution, which is you actually tattooing and making the money. But you still need to learn. You should always be learning. So there's still 10% of that time spent should be on learning.
And I think that these numbers are loose to a degree, meaning you could say 50-50 to some extent, depending on what industry you've been in before. Maybe it translates to this industry, or maybe not at all. Or maybe you've never been in any industry, like a lot of you, and you're just going in for the first time. Well, if that's the case, then you're going to start out with literally 90% learning because we need to make you safe and sound way before you let you put you in a position where you could hurt yourself or others. And then 10% execution, meaning you're going to be only doing a few things that we know you can do safely. Because none of it's, I will say this, I don't think anything in tattooing is that hard. The hardest thing about tattooing physically, the hardest thing is doing it every day, over and over and over for 8 hours for 20 years. That's the hardest part. But every individual thing is pretty easy. There's no physically real hard, crazy thing to do. But there's a lot of really easy things you can easily do wrong and hurt people. So that's the whole point of an apprenticeship. And again, we'll go over some of those things here pretty soon. But just an example of what the 90-10 and then 10-90 sort of balance looks like. And then afterwards, you should be, and I think this is me, I think I spend most of my time, 90% of it executing, and then 10% of it still learning. For me, the learning lately has been very frustrating because I'm not learning things I actually want to learn anymore. I'm learning things I need to learn, that I have to learn, and it is not fun. Some of those are art techniques, but most of them are business techniques. Most of them are tech stuff. So I could bring this to you guys here, and I will tell you right now, it's given me gray hairs. I would actually give most of my gray hair most of my gray hair to Peach and to these devices you see before you. So Peach, I love you. And then you know, Midnight. No, Peach. She does it for me. She's a gray hair creator. Is there anything? I don't want to miss any of this. David did ask a minute ago. Single pass line, is that with the single needle? All the rest is the multiple needles. No, single pass line means with any needle grouping. So it could be a single needle or multiple, but it's just running over it once, and it's exactly the way you wanted, and you don't have to fix any of it. That's hard. That's very, very, very hard. I'm still working on it, and I've been doing this shit for 20 years. Why don't you go ahead and read this one for me, the bottom one.
Brody Jade says the problem is they won't know what else to do after that without the rest of your knowledge and advice.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's why you guys stay tuned. That's why you guys come to us. You go to the tattoovault.com or come into the shop, High Sierra Tattoo Co. Meet the wonderful Amber Graham and or it's your boy. And that's why we're here. That's you have no excuses. I'm robbing every excuse you have now of sucking for the rest of your life. Now you don't have to. So come check us out. That's what we're all doing here. So let's get to the next one here. Sterilization. Actually, you know what? Before we read this, I bet you Dalen is just dying for a little bit of input here. I bet you there's something he's just right now just
wishing
just rolling over in his hyper. I bet he's just itching right now. So let's go. Let's do this. Dalen, what's up?
How's it going, guys? Feels good to be back. No, the 90-10 ratio, like you said, per person, per situation, it's going to fluctuate a little bit, but the message is still clear that so much of your time is going to be spent learning within the apprentice phase, and then that 10-15% is going to be spent applying and executing what you are learning. An example of that is, most of my day yesterday, I was there for about 8 hours. 7 of them were cleaning and, learning how to, because believe it or not, people don't know how to mop. And then believe it or not, mopping in a tattoo shop is a little bit more complicated than anywhere else, because even though you mentioned there are simple tasks, to us they are simple now, but people can do them wrong because cross contamination, staying sterile, staying clean, it just an added layer of complexity to these mundane tasks. Um, but learning how to do all this stuff properly, and then as far as that 10%, 15% executing, I got to do put on my first stencil, first two stencils yesterday, and so getting to actually get the hands-on experience on shaving, applying the right cream, the green soap with the alcohol, and doing it all properly, making sure it's orientated, and as far as the process goes, like taking a step back, making sure it all works. That was my execution phase of the day, along with drawing on when I had the free time drawing. And like you said, if you want to be a tattoo artist, you probably have to create some art in the meantime. So always drawing, always getting the hands-on experience when I can. And when that's not the case, learning, just learning, learning, learning.
Dalen, thank you so much for that. I got to have this comment read. Go ahead and read that from Brody Jade.
Bless her heart. This is the perfect trio. All your info complements each other's.
I was just, before she even typed that, I was just thinking, Dalen, I don't know where you came from and I don't know where you're going, but I hope it's with the team and continues to be with the team because, dude, I think something's being born right now as we speak.
Beautiful. I love it.
So thank you for that. All of you guys watching and all you girls, we appreciate you guys too. But I will tell you right now that I think magic is being born right now. And that is called serendipity. It's actually maybe even best called it's better to be prepared and not have an opportunity than to have an opportunity and not be prepared. And we are prepared and the opportunity has arose. And thank you guys for joining me because, well, this is way cooler than I thought it would be, to be honest with you. I mean, I expected to do well, but I'm just saying this is way cooler than I expected it to be. So let's just call it a night and party. You guys want to party? Okay, let's keep going. Sterilization. Super boring. Yeah. GM says Dalen. That's with my accent, okay? Dalen sounds like a very smart fellow, they said.
Dalen, no one said you could log in and post comments about
It's not me. I promise it's not me. I would come up with I'd probably, what would I do? I'd do Nayland Dorman. That's what I would do for my name.
That makes sense. Okay, so Dalen, we're going to get back to the slideshow here for a little bit and talk about sterilization. I really actually don't want to spend a lot of time on this because honestly, this is probably the most important part. This is the most important part because if you can't do this, you can't do anything in a tattoo shop. You literally can't do anything. Even Amber being a receptionist got to learn about this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Even being a receptionist, you still got to get your bloodborne pathogen training because you're around it.
Yeah, one thing I was told literally like my very first day was if you drop something on the ground, don't pick it up.
Hot lava. We play hot lava in the shop. Yep. Mm-hmm. Why do you make me look like a monster on camera?
I mean,
you just look so feminine and cute, and I'm just this big, sweaty, hairy,
burly guy.
I look like a big bear. Okay.
This light's doing me some favors.
I guess so. You do have the best side.
I do have the best light.
Yeah, this is your best side. And this is my bad side, so that's why.
I'm sorry.
But they are all right that this is a wonderful trio, so thank you guys. Sterilization. Let's get to this here. Okay. The most boring part to me, honestly, absolutely the most boring part is sterilization. Actually, maybe not true. Administration. We'll get to that in a little bit. Sterilization is boring because you have to do it. It's necessary. It's the work you don't want to do. Nobody's really that interested in this, even though some of it can be fascinating, like learning about microorganisms, like learning like cross-contamination and what are spores. I mean, who are spores? What are these mystical creatures? But learning all this stuff is necessary, and you can't do much good without it. So if you want to know where to start in the industry, do this stuff online first before you go to any shop, before you put together a portfolio, or while you're putting it together, before you ask for a position, before you shouldn't ask for anything, but before you go anywhere to offer any sort of value to any shop to work in, you should get this done first, because you can learn this all online. And you've got to get right here your bloodborne. This is the first thing, your bloodborne pathogens BBP training. So why don't you read these for us before we go over them all?
Yeah. Bloodborne pathogens, BBPs. They are microorganisms that can cause disease in humans. They include Hep Z, Hep B, HIV, and a plethora of others. And as Josh already said, you need your BBP.
It is hard. BBP
certificate to begin tattooing.
It's like BBB, but with one. It's BB. It's like
is.
another B, but not the full
it's
one.
It's like a BB half B.
Yeah. So you want to go BBB. Okay, here we go. So cross-contamination
is the physical transfer of bacteria from one thing to another. Examples of this are touching an unsterilized object, even with gloves on, because I hate to break it to you guys, but gloves, things can stick to the gloves. I know that comes as a shock to some people.
Right.
Setting a clean tool on an unsterilized table, also a no-no.
Mm-hmm. So this is sterilization is everything. It really is. It's not. None of this is rocket science. Well, there's a little bit that's actually a little bit biological science, biology and stuff. So it's a little bit of science, but most of it is really basic stuff. It's just so specific that it's only hard because you need the training. And I'm going to tell you right now, everybody F's this up. And you're supposed to. This is why during the whole lockdowns, I won't say any names, but during the lockdowns over the years, seeing people wear masks and gloves and wearing them in the car and then go back in the store and then touching cash and then touching their masks and then putting them in their purse and then taking them out, putting them back on and wearing gloves the whole time. This doesn't do anything for you and actually gives you false sense of security, which oftentimes actually hurts you because you think you're clean. And so if you're not doing it right, you're not only doing it wrong, there's no other way around it. And also you're doing it worse. Yeah. So you have to learn this stuff. And I'm going to tell you, it might sound easy. Oh, cool. Just don't touch blood and then touch something else. It's not that easy because most of you are not walking around like doctors doing this to try to keep your hands clean on a regular basis enough to be habitual with it until it's habit, until it's absolute habit that when you got those gloves on, like Dalen, I see him doing this now. And a lot of the apprentices, when they first start, takes a while for them to get used to when they're gloved up to just get this signal of your hands are now sterile and only to be operated in the environment in which is appropriate. So if you're tearing down a station and you're contaminated, you can't go to another station, especially one that's in progress. If you're working with the trash, you can't then go to a clean environment with those said gloves. That takes training. And for that training, you can read up all about this all you want online, all the stuff that's here on the screen. You can learn it all, get all the qualifications, but qualifications only get you so far. You need physical training. And that physical training comes down to someone like me essentially walking around with a ruler, watching you and letting you know every time you do something wrong and giving you a nice little notice. It's not really a ruler, but there's a proverbial, is it proverbial? A proverbial ruler that exists. And you need someone like me to be able to help you. That's one of the whole points of a actual formal apprenticeship is to get that kind of training. So that's all we're going to talk about here. You have to get the bloodborne pathogen training. Little sort of, again, tip there is get your bloodborne pathogen training. It's a couple bucks. It's online. It's super quick. It's super easy. You have to do it if you're going to be a tattoo artist or piercer. Even if you're just going to make yourself useful in a shop at all. I mean, you damn near have to have it just to be a customer because you're in the environment. It's not true. But you do have to get it if you're going to be working in a shop at all, even if you're just, working as an assistant or something. So you have to do it even if you're not tattooing. Getting that bloodborne pathogen training, you can get that while you're building your portfolio. So go online and get this training. Cross-contamination, it comes down to training. So that part right here is so important because every single person I ever teach gets this wrong because it's training. It's not information. All of this information doesn't do you any good until you put it into practice and then over and over and over get corrected until eventually you have it down right. That was perfect.
Realize that was beautiful.
That was exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's not bar ourselves with sterilization. Let's get on to the next one. I don't want to undermine it. I just want to let you know we're artists, right? Like we want to get into the juicy stuff. So let's get to even more boring stuff.
Like, we have one more.
Yep, let's get to even more boring stuff. So go ahead and read these and we'll get past this stuff.
Personal protective equipment. Special equipment used to protect you and the customer from possibly hazardous material. For tattooing and piercing, this is mainly gloves. And then make sure to note, treat every customer as if they are infected with a blood-borne pathogen. If you don't start with sterilization, you cannot start at all. You will be putting the customer and yourself at risk.
That pretty much says everything.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I really have to add to that is, again, just to reiterate, it takes training. You can get all the information and read it all you want and memorize it all you want, but that isn't actually what matters. What matters is you get the physical training. You actually hear people talk about this a lot. There's this guy, Grand Thumb, give a little shout out. Somebody I watch on YouTube a lot because he always talks about training. He's a firearms specialist. Shouldn't say that. I don't know if he actually is, but he's a firearms enthusiast. But he worked as, I believe, I want to say paratroop. Oh man, I'm gonna get it wrong. But anyway, he was in, I believe, the Air Force, and he taught people, because when you're in the Air Force and you learn how to fly planes and you're going to be over enemy territory, you have to learn survival. And because you might have to eject and you might not be able to get out of there, and there might not be anybody to come and help you. So anyway, to side note this, he talks about how much training is everything. The information doesn't matter. Information means nothing. Information is just words on a board somewhere. You got to take that information and apply it. And that goes very, very true with sterilization, but really all aspects of any sort of training. But sterilization, you can know all you want, you can recite all you want, and you can do it forwards and backwards with crayons if you like, but it won't matter until you get the training, and you have to get trained by professional guys, because if you don't, I'm trying to get real serious here, because if you don't, you're going to hurt yourself and others, and you can actually hurt yourself. I will tell you this, you can kill people. You absolutely can. You can absolutely kill people. If somebody has a compromised immune system and you're doing something incorrectly and they get some sort of, they contract some sort of illness or disease or infection, you can harm them to the point to where you will never see them again. And it can be absolutely your fault. And you might not know it's your fault, or you might know it's your fault and you might get sued for it. Big, huge boogeyman words there, but you might not actually know that it was your fault, and you'll have to live with that for the rest of your life. So it's not that deadly necessarily, but it's not absolutely not absurd to think that somebody could be harmed fatally from some of the things that can be contracted. So be very, very careful and take note, because it is that important to get the training. So we will skip the rest of this. But before we do, Amber, why don't you read some of these? How about that one?
Ooh, Brody Jade said smooth like butter.
Yeah. And from GM, let's go ahead and read that.
How long until Dalen can tattoo? Is there still a long road for him?
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and bring Dalen on for that. Dalen, we're going to bring you up and let you answer this for GM. So he says, how long can till Dalen can tattoo? And is there a long road ahead for him? I added some words.
Well, I'm gonna assume GM is a guy. Maybe it's a girl. We'll say they. To answer their question, I am still fairly new. I still am in the first phase of my apprenticeship. It's kind of broken, or at least at High Sierra, the apprenticeship is broken into 3 phases. The first phase, you're doing all the same chores, learning how to be sterile, be clean, and then practice still making artwork. And then once you prove you can get past that, phase 2, still doing all the stuff from phase 1, but you are now hopefully working on some fake skin, working on fake skin as much as you can. Do that for a little while, and then maybe convince your friends and your family to let you tattoo their thighs or something, get them in, get that practice in, all the while still doing the fake skin. Build your way up from there onto phase 3, doing all the stuff from the previous phases, and then maybe you're doing some really easy, simple walk-in stuff, some infinity simple, some simple stuff. That'd be pretty hard to mess up. Doing face skin every day, still creating art, still doing flash sheets, and keeping the shop maintained as the apprentice. And then from there, you get in between each phase, you get evaluated on, if you are doing everything right. You use essentially these check-ins. And once you get past the end of phase 3, then, you do one final check-in, one final evaluation, and then that's when you move up to being an artist.
Right. And this is very specific to our shop in regards to our protocol
Right.
in regards to the
Mm-hmm.
apprenticeships, which I guess is why we're all here, right? So the apprenticeship part of it, we break up to 3 phases. That's very specific to our shop. Although I do believe that the program we're building will be very useful for all shops, to the point to where our real plan in the end, full transparency, is to actually build a program so well and so thoughtful and so effective when you can get some kid off the street like Dalen with 0 skills or interpersonal connectivity. Just kidding, Dalen. You're awesome. But when you get a kid off the streets who doesn't know anything, and these shops have a big feat to try to teach you and train you on how to, and training really, train you to be safe and sterile and useful in the shop, it's a lot of work on us. It's not just, oh, show me what to do. It's not like that. It's so much more work than that. So really, full transparency, we're trying to build a program. We are building. Right now, we're doing it. We're building a program that will exist so that people can have, especially artists and shop owners and business owners, they can have a program that we build. It sets a sort of industry standard, not to be regulated necessarily. A lot of the regulations are already in place by local and state and government entities, but to give you a framework to use so that it can be super effective. So this is so far what we're talking about, very native to our shop. But it will, no matter what, it would transfer to other people's shops for sure. But there might be nuances to some extent, of course, shop by shop. So this is very much to us. But what Dalen really is saying is true in regards to the sort of step-by-step stuff. And that's a very important part. So if you were to answer the actual question, Dalen, how long until you can tattoo for you?
It's gonna be a little while, at least. I don't know. I mean, like I said, these evaluations are really in your hands, Josh. So I gotta get the green light from you.
Well, Dalen, that's why I made the worksheet, is because it's not in my hands.
Mm.
See? So it's not in my
Mm-hmm.
hands, it's in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So that the worksheet, the whole point of it is so that I can't emotionally hold you back just because I don't think you should move forward. Right? I'm actually giving you an
Right.
evaluation based off metrics that we can use to move you forward effectively and efficiently. And also, really the reason I started the handout, which we won't go too far in, we'll get into the next slide here in a second. But the main reason I made the handout, or the 3 phases for the apprenticeship, is so that I don't waste my time wondering, man, is this person, are they getting it? Are they figuring it out? Like, where are they? What did they learn? What was the last thing we talked about with them? I don't remember where they're at. What did they know? What have I told them? I can't remember all that. I got plenty of other stuff to do. So it really will be very useful for other businesses, shops, and owners to be able to use this criteria, because, man, it is just impossible if you're not measuring it. There's an old saying that, I don't know how old it is. I'm old, so it's old if I know it, right? There's a saying that goes that it gets measured, gets managed, and you cannot manage what is not measured. It's just very important to get the metrics. So that's why we have that handout, which will eventually be available through the program so that we can give it to other people to use. So that's a good point. Do you have anything else to say to that, Dalen, before we get to even more boring stuff in the slides, although very, very important?
I was gonna touch on, you were saying, if you want to learn, getting as close as you can to a professional as possible is key. And I kind of wanted to add to an example of why that is so important. We could say how important it is, and you could be like, whatever, I'm gonna go learn by myself. I'm gonna go buy a machine off Amazon. I'm gonna go watch some YouTube videos. And while that might be appealing at first, the reason why that could be detrimental to your career as a whole is because you could be developing these bad habits. But to you, you don't know they're bad habits. To you, they're just how you're doing it. And before you know it, you're 6 months in and you realize, oh, I need to go to a shop. And so I can really learn what I'm doing. And you go there and you realize you've been doing it wrong. And then it's going to be harder than if you just went to the shop in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, it's way harder to unlearn something than it is to learn something, especially if you can learn that something from a professional like us. So we got Louis on here. What's up, Louis? He is adding a little 2 cents to it. 0 skills. That's coming from Louis. He's talking about Dalen. It's his best friend. I think it's Louis. That's Louis, right? Yeah, that's Louis. Okay. Let's go ahead and go back to the slide. Actually, before we go to the slide, let's give everybody just a few minutes of a break. Okay. We're going to go for a 2-3 minute break. So you guys stay tuned. don't go anywhere. We're going to be back and we're going to get to the rest of this. And some of the stuff gets even better and spicier. And then your comments and questions at the end can get involved. So we're going to take a nice little break and we will be back and to talk about the administrative. So don't go anywhere and we will see you shortly.
Super important.
Hilarious. If on break you guys were to hear everything we just said, talking about my big old funky feet and how I've had such a long day, but this is really ending it really well because I just love doing this stuff and I love love, you know?
Lovers do.
Okay. So let's get back into it. I'm really glad that was actually muted and while the intermission was happening, they couldn't hear me. That's awesome. Again, Amber, I'm going to say this.
Been ideal.
Thank you for being here with me.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited.
Yep. And Dalen, of course, is in the background. Thank you for being here with us. And all of you guys watching, thanks for being on here. Dambria, let's get to her question real quick before we get to this next slide.
So do you still have to wash hands before and after gloving up?
So you absolutely have to wash hands after 3 times changing gloves or changing stations. So if you leave your station with a client and you're going to another station or the restroom or to the front desk or to eat or do anything, then you, of course, have to wash before you get back. But if you're with client and you're ungloving to do something in your station because you want to stay sterile and not cross-contaminate, then you do not have to rewash your hands unless you leave said station or have changed gloves 3 times. So that could be specific to county. Some of the stuff that we say in regards to health and regulations will be county specific. So you have to look up your own laws and rules. I wish I could just give them, one blanket answer, but they'll be different for everybody. So, by the way, you're allowed to use also, I believe, hand sanitizer up to 3 times. If you're not leaving your station, you can use it up to 3 times and not have to wash. So if you're not washing, you want to use that, you can do that too. But those laws also and rules, those expectations change. So again, you got to look them up in local and county and regulations there. So super fun stuff. Damber said, Amber and Day are doing great.
Yay. Thank you.
So let's get into administrative.
Bum, bum, bum.
Dun, 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 dun. Super fun. Is it? Wait, administrative. Wow. That,
Wow.
you know what it should be. I think, let's see if this is the right one. I'm going to get it. administrative client info forms. That's awesome. So go ahead and read these for us, and we'll get into these a little bit. Again, this is really boring stuff, but 100% necessary. And if you're going to be a tattoo artist and or piercer, you have to do these things. They're non-negotiable. So go ahead and read these.
Okay. Keeps clients' info readily available. These forms may request consent from the client, medical history and current medications, contact info, and their identification.
Yes. So client info forms are non-negotiable. You have to have them, and you have to keep them readily available for up to 2 years. Again, county specific. So look up your laws and rules.
Your laws and rules.
Do you do that every day, or is it just me?
It's just you.
I do it a lot.
You do it a lot. I do it on occasion, but not as much as you do.
I would love to get to the point to where I don't have to ever correct it or address it and just let it happen.
You could.
But it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while. They're used to it, and I think you are too. Mm-hmm. So the rules and laws and rules are going to be different per county. So now I feel like I'm going to do it even more that I brought it up. So yes, 100%. You have to keep them in our county here in Clovis and or Fresno. You got to keep them for up to 2 years on location in a locked environment. So it has to be something that's able to be locked, not necessarily a safe, but something like that, a filing cabinet or something, or even sometimes some sort of container that's not mobile, something that's a permanent fixture or a semi-permanent fixture. So something like a file cabinet or a safe, I guess. I don't know, either one. Anyway, you have to keep these forms on hand, and you have to get their information, of course, for many reasons. One is for your own information, but also for release of liability from you by them so that they know. For example, this seems absurd, but I'll tell you why it's not. So we actually have to have on our consent forms that every customer must fill out if they're going to get any procedure done. They have to actually be notified that whether it's piercing or tattooing, piercing, there's always a risk. There's always a risk this won't work, and that's not our fault. That could just be up to your body. You're still going to pay us, and we're still doing our best. So there's always a risk. But with tattooing, we actually have to have on the consent form the notification that these are permanent, that these permanently alter your aesthetic, your appearance for the rest of your life. We literally have to label that it's actually permanent.
Caution, contents in cup might be hot.
Caution, contents in cup might be hot or just warm because you put them there.
Yeah,
and they're
might supposed to be.
Yeah, so you got to watch out, because these things matter. You can't just willy-nilly make a consent form and expect it to meet the requirements of the health department. And your health, and sometimes health department, I don't think is what regulates everybody. It just depends on the county and then the area in which you live. But so back to the tattooing part, we actually have to tell people that it's permanent, which I always thought was absurd. I'm like, that's silly. But is it silly? Is it silly? Because this lady walked in once, and she was absolutely just irate. We had not tattooed her ever. I'd never seen her before. She barely spoke English. I believe she was from the East. So she definitely looked Asian. Not that matters, but I couldn't understand what she was saying. And she came in super mad, and she showed me her tattoo, and she said nobody told her it wouldn't come off. And she even licked her hand and just rubbed it and was like, God, that probably looked really inappropriate. So, but she licked her hand and she rubbed it really hard and was just pissed and just like, see? I'm like, yeah, I know that tattoos don't come off. So anyway, in 20 years, I've had one person freak out. Now, I don't know if it's because of where she's from and it's not that popular. I don't know, but it was, I thought, absurd to have that on the consent form. But now you know that it's not, because there are those people. And I'm not ragging on her actually at all. I'm just bringing it up that that's a real thing. So you got to consider it. Okay, we could talk about this stuff all day long, but who likes to do that? So consent forms got to have a medical history, and current medications are going to be all on there, and the contact information. That is crucial for you, and not only to cover your arse, but also for your business reasons. You might need to follow up with these people. There's times where we have to stay, for example, through the Fresno Health and the County Health Department, Fresno County Health Department. I almost did, but I got that. We have to actually go to that website. We don't have to, but I do. And I look up FDA approved or non-approved or issues regarding anything in our industry. Mm-hmm. So they'll talk about inks that are recalled. They'll talk about new procedures that have changed. And I stay up to date on those. Well, if, for example, and it never has yet, somebody had been tattooed by something that was recalled, and I wanted to call them and let them know. Like, hey, look, I'm just letting you know, It was totally legit when I used it, but it's not legit anymore. It's totally not legit. So, and identification. This is a big one for your business reasons and legalities, but also the identification's important because every county is also different. You can go get tattooed in other counties with under different different metrics, different pretenses. Like you could be younger or older in other states. I don't know what the right word is there.
Criteria?
Yes, different criteria for different states to meet getting either pierced or tattooed. So look up your local laws. In California, you have to be 18 to get a tattoo. There are no waivers. It doesn't matter if it's your parent. Doesn't matter who's there. You can have your whole family for all we care. If you're under 18, you can't get tattooed. That's not true in every state. If you want to get pierced, as long as it's an appropriate piercing and above the waist, and or you don't have to be undressed in any way, then piercings are fine. So mostly limited to the face and belly buttons. That's pretty much, if you're underage, that's what you're going to maybe be getting. But if you're like 13 and you want a septum, or you're 13 and want a belly button, we're probably not going to do it. Although I don't believe it's illegal. I'd have to look that up, so don't quote me. I should know. But I don't personally do it, so it doesn't really concern me, even if it was legal. If you're not over 15, I'm not doing it. That's just my. How would you feel about that? Learning how to pierce. Like if somebody came in 13, parents were cool with it, it's totally legal. They want a belly button piercing. How would you feel about that?
So
totally putting you on the spot.
Like I know, like ethically, like, or just like
like how do you? How does Ambergram feel about piercing a 13-year-old's belly button?
I don't think 13-year-olds are. I don't know. That's tough, man. Mm-hmm. That's tough.
Because what about their ears?
Yeah, totally fine.
Totally fine. Because culturally speaking, that's more accepted.
Yeah, and that's where my brain kind of goes, right? Mm-hmm. Is that like, well, I mean,
now who's the one to decide? So maybe it's not illegal, but who in the end decides whether or not you're going to do this piercing?
I do.
You do. And so that is very important to know that you have to set your own parameters too. Like me, there's certain piercings I want to do for certain reasons, for certain people. It could be anything from somebody's just too young and they're getting their earlobes. I can't bring I'll cry right now thinking about making a 2-year-old cry. I can't do it. Yeah. I'm not doing it. Now, but if your little 6-year-old kid comes in here, just a little brat, I'm kidding. They're actually always, you met that one girl that came in. Oh, I almost had her name right there. She was awesome. She was so cool. I want to say Max. It wasn't, but she was super rad, and it was so fun. And she did cry, but she manned up and just handled it. Mm-hmm. That was cool. But anyway, I set my own parameters there. I'm totally allowed to do it. When they're, let's say 1-2 years old, to do the earlobes. But I just don't. That's my parameters. So there's a lot of details there. Let's get past this administrative part and get into more administrative. Go ahead and read this part, and then we will move on.
Legal and taxes. Well, we'll move on to another slide that also has to do about more legality and taxes. So sole proprietor, this is when you own an enterprise by yourself. There is no legal distinction between you and that entity. You can employ other people, though, and you are subject to pass-through taxation.
So you have to know this. One of the reasons why is you need to know what is covered and not covered. You need to know if you're covered or not covered. You need to know what kind of risks you're in as an individual. So as an individual, you're a tattoo artist or a piercer, you want to be, or you're working in the environment. Let's say you hurt somebody. You hurt somebody and you have a regulated expectation by the county and the health department that says, here are your guidelines. And if you did not follow those guidelines and it could be related to the thing that went wrong, you're going to the slammer. I mean, you actually can. I mean, you absolutely can be jailed for neglect, but no joke. It's not small stuff. And I mean, this is real. You have to be covered, whether it's your business structure being put together, appropriately, whether or not, I mean, it could be anything from getting sued, taxes being wrong, to literally just, somebody getting hurt. And for the rest of your life, you'll be paying them handsomely. So, or at least it'll just put a huge kink in your step. Yeah, a big hitch in your step. I digress. Let's move on. So there's a lot of stuff regarding this that you might not be very interested in knowing, but you will have to know them. So for example, if you don't know what kind of business entity you are, you're a sole proprietor. If you're doing business and you're making money and you're in a county that will absolutely want some of that, as well as a federal government and a state that will want some of it, not just county, although they do, you're going to know how to do that stuff appropriately, because if they find you doing business otherwise or illegally, you could owe a hefty amount of money, and you do not want to find yourself in that position. And if you don't think, I hate to be this guy because I am a rebel at heart, But if you don't think they're watching, I promise you, there's people who literally sit and look you up on Instagram. A lot of you might not believe that. I can promise you right now. I've heard it from the mouth of babes. The right expression, but I like it. I don't know if it works. So anyway, I've heard literally from the horse's mouth.
That's better.
So I've heard it from the horse's mouth that they literally will look you up on Instagram. They look up hashtags. They look up counties. They look up local areas. They are watching. Scary. They're watching, and they also do have, and I've had the health department watch me. I've been on their radar. I've been sent summons before for tattooing in places that weren't quote unquote regulated. I have had private investigators literally in my studio and went to court. So that's as much as I can tell you. But I will tell you right now, if you're not, and my I's were crossed and my dots were T'd, not going to correct it.
Don't do it.
Then, see, I always have to think that one through, and I'm just done doing it. So dots are I'd and my crossed are T'd. I think I said it again differently.
You said it
See? That's so good. That's so beautiful. You guys are welcome. So if you don't think this stuff matters, it absolutely matters. And if this sounds like a lot because you just want to be an apprentice, great. But again, like I said, there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to go over that we can't go super deep into. And it's going to leave you with lots of questions, but that's the whole point. So I hope you're taking notes. So let's get to the administrative. I think this is the end of it.
I
the
believe
administrative.
So.
Oh.
Una mas.
Okay, so let's go through this.
Okay.
We kind of talked about this a little bit, but
yeah. Limited liability companies and LLC. This is allowed by state statute. It protects the owner's personal assets in case of a lawsuit. You can have one or more owners in an LLC, and there is tax flexibility, whether you are classed as a corporate, right? C is for corporate, and then S is for a sole proprietor LLC.
I believe S Corp and C Corp is not necessarily that. I think is it written on there that way? So that I don't actually think that's true. So on here that might be wrong. And if you guys got the PDF, we'll have to scratch that. I think I could actually be wrong. Maybe she looked it up and I don't know. But a corporation is a non sole proprietor, meaning S Corp is a structure. It's a tax structure for a corporation. Okay. So if you're an LLC, you're a corporation. If you want to be elected as an S or C Corp, that's a different structure of a corporation that will then pass taxes through in a unique way to benefit that said business, depending on the type of business it is.
Got it.
One quick example. If I'm an LLC, all the liability is not on me. It's on my business and then me. Mm-hmm. If I'm a sole proprietor, I individually am the business and it's all on me. Well, if I don't have any assets, then I really don't probably care. But one asset I have is my time and my life and my freedom. So that's kind of important. But if you're an LLC, you have some tax, I want to say sheltering. That's definitely not the right word. But you have some tax barriers, if you will. That's not the right word. But forgive me here. But
essentially, they can go over. If you were sued, they can go for the assets of the company. Yes. They cannot go for because through an LLC, if I'm not mistaken, too, you end up having an income because you have to pay yourself.
Yes, you do.
So they can't come at you for your income, essentially, for your money, but they can for any assets that the company has.
Absolutely. So that would be called, for example, if they, now mind you, especially in California, there's something called piercing the corporate veil that you and also they, I believe, can do. It might not be the right terminology, vice versa, but for you to pierce the corporate veil means you're using your business structure to buy personal things. Bad idea. If you're a sole proprietor, nobody cares. I mean, you should care, but you're not going to get in any trouble. If you're an LLC, you now have to dot your T's and cross your I's. Mm-hmm. You have to. And if you are like me and can't spell, read, or write well, you're going to need to hire somebody to do this for you. Even if you are good at spelling and reading and writing, you still have to hire people to do this for you. If you're a sole proprietor, not true. If you're going to go anything more deep, which you should at least learn about what that means, then you're going to have to learn up on those things and hire somebody else to help you. It's not super complicated today. A lot of people know about LegalZoom, and LegalZoom, Zoomo Legal. They will absolutely help you and do all this for you. So it's actually really cool. I've been ripped off. Man, it's so crazy to have gone through all these hurdles. I've been ripped off before and I lost $900 like 10 years ago. And I will tell you right now, $900 10 years ago would be like probably $2,000 today. Yeah. So it hurt. And it was through trying to get the right corporation, and the person I went through ripped me off. So go to LegalZoom instead. Corporation. So we kind of went over that. So you guys have questions, we can help you to some extent, but you always want to talk to a legal professional for sure. So you're going to have to consult with them. One of the best people to talk to are lawyers. Lawyers know all this shit, and they had to study this, so they know this stuff really well. So that's who you want to talk to. Let's go to a couple of questions real quick before we get to the next slide, especially because these ones are a little bit stale. Not the questions, but the slides. And not your fault, just legal reasons. Sorry. Okay, I'm having too much fun. Let's read this right here.
Do you need those papers each time for the same client? Example, if you tattoo them once, then again in 3 months. Or if it's still the same piece continued.
Very good question. And the answer is depends on your county and where you live and how you collected the information. So for us, we only keep one. Actually, let me say this. Allegedly, some people keep one client form per client. They don't make them a new a client that's previously visited. I almost said old client. Okay. But don't pick on the old people. So a previous client who's been with you before and has already filled out the client form may not have to fill out another client form as long as you update the said client form with what is called the product tag or the
lot ID number.
Lot ID number that gives you an expiration date and the lot ID for the products used on the person. That has to be updated, meaning if 6 months ago I tattooed Nancy comes to me tonight and wants another tattoo, I don't have to redo her paperwork unless something's changed, but I do have to absolutely update the lot number and ID number of the products I've used and actually attach that to the form so that we have accurate recordization. Is that a word? That's not a word, but I'm going to go with it. We have accurate record of the procedure so that we're keeping ourselves and others safe. Again, if there's a recall or if there's something that happened with a lot that was produced and we need to go back and see if somebody's at risk, we can do that. So there's different ways to do it, but better just fill out a new form every time and you're safer, but not everybody does it that way. And we're trying to go to digital too, so we can save the trees, save the trees, save time, make it efficient, effective, and more accurate. And because people suck at spelling, we're trying to go digital so that we can actually
terrible handwriting.
Yeah.
Atrocious.
Wait,
None of those people are doctors. I know they're not doctors. So why is their handwriting so crap?
Yeah, because it doesn't say doctor crap handwriting.
Right.
Okay.
Maybe I just can't read it.
Brody is asking what kind of lawyers. Honestly, most all lawyers have to study most all law, but that's not always true exactly. So most lawyers, like you're going to not talk to a criminal law defense or a family defense lawyer or something. You're going to talk to a business lawyer. So it's going to be considered like someone like a CPA that studied the law, somebody who's not just a tax preparer or somebody at like H&R Block or something. You're going to talk to somebody who actually has studied this in terms of law and business structures and entities, and they can help you. So if you call somebody who can help you like a CPA, they're definitely in contact with all these people that can help you. And you can also look them up locally. Most lawyers will do some sort of consultation, and I think that's a sign of a good one. They will do a consultation for free, up to like maybe 15 minutes. And a lot of times it's with their assistants and or virtual or a phone call. And you can ask them questions, and they will try to give you the best answers they can to the services to make sure you're a good fit. If they do not do that, my opinion is don't go to them. If they're not willing to at least make sure that before you pay them that you're in the right place, then I think I wouldn't waste my time. And they may be good, and I don't know, but I just wouldn't waste my time with them. But really good question. Administrative, we went to that. Let's go ahead and breeze through some of this stuff. So we talked about this already, right? We went through the corporation part.
Yep.
So let's get to the rest of the administrative, and this is the end of it, I do believe.
Ready?
Super
I'm
ready.
ready. Yeah. Okay. I was like, you must be 18 years old, which we've already said. You must have the blood-borne pathogen exposure control training and certificate. And you must have your hepatitis B vaccine or provide a declination.
Yes. So you have to have those things. That's pretty much enough said. We've gone over these things before. I actually think it's great that you can provide the declination. I do that personally. I don't believe in false sense of security, so I think you should just be safe. But at the same time, I'm not giving medical advice. You do what covers you. If you want the vaccine, great. I'm just not interested in it myself, and I've been doing this for a very long time. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents, but it's not health advice, so don't take it as such. So let's move on to the next bit, which is art. And this is my almost favorite part. My almost favorite part, because there really shouldn't be anything on this slide or the next one regarding art, because art is, in my opinion, very subjective. It's not an objective thing. And so let's read these in regards to art.
Design. Used to improve aesthetic appeal using different elements and principles. Two very important principles are proportions and light structure. People are exposed to these principles every day, so messing the elements up can be very noticeable.
Okay. So in regards to design, I think that the best thing you can do, because every artist is so unique, and I'm actually going to bring Mr. Dalen on here, Mr. Normandy, Dalen Norm, in a second, after I explain this, because I think he'll have some good input regarding the fact that he's, started his apprenticeship recently, but also has a background in photography. And a lot of the photos you guys have actually seen on my social media are by Mr. Dalen himself. So art and design is a subjective thing. So saying used to improve aesthetic appeal using different elements and principles, it's exactly it. Different elements and principles, meaning try things, experiment. F it up is my motto, because before you get to skin, that's what fake skin's for. That's what paper's for. That's what art is for. Like, go experiment. Everybody's so afraid to make something bad. Like, seriously, go try it. Do it on purpose, even. And I will tell you right now, a lot of times you will actually unbury some gold within you, because you'll discover things that you weren't. It's like running through the forest but trying to stay safe and touch nothing, or run through the forest and like get involved, like see things, smell it, taste it, touch it, take your shoes off, get your feet in the sand. Your experience is going to be entirely different if you allow that to happen. So I'm going to switch over to Dalen for a second and see if he has any input on that. I know that you do.
Yeah, so my biggest thing, like I said, I have a background in just a creative field in general, and in any creative field you go into, I'm a firm believer in you have to take the time to actually learn the rules of the design. But the reason I vouch for that is because as soon as you learn the rules, I believe you can break them. You have to know the rules to be able to break them. Because if you're just breaking the rules going in willy nilly, you don't know what you're doing. You're just being sloppy.
Yeah, it's called a mistake.
Yeah, that's a mistake. If you know the rules and you intentionally did it a little differently, that's design. That's being creative. That's where
Perfect.
creativity comes into it. And like you said, I do have the photo background, so a lot of lighting it takes into consideration, which has been a weird juxtaposition with I'm trying to prioritize. I want to eventually do American traditional work, which doesn't adhere to the traditional rules of lighting.
Correct.
So it's this cool juxtaposition, but like I said, I have to know the rules to be able to break them.
Yes, absolutely, and answered perfectly, because in regarding to this art and design, we have down here proportions and light structure. So the reason I put those in here, the two very important principles, is, and I know I've told this to you, Dalen, before, but I'll say it how I tell all of my apprentices and anybody I teach any sort of level of art to. It's always even weird to say teach art to, like to be an art teacher. There's something so strange to me about that, but we won't go down that path right now. So, two very important principles are proportions and light structure, because everybody, whether they're artists or not, which most people aren't, everybody every single day sees proportions and light structures so regularly that anytime they're wrong, they catch it, even if they don't know what it is that they're catching. Everybody can tell. For example, I talked earlier about this guy that I watch on YouTube that talks a lot about, um, you know, um, say, what was it, gun enthusiasm. But he talks a lot about survival out in the thick of it, out in the bush. And he a lot of times says that if you're trying to camo yourself, you actually have to disrupt the print that you show in regards to your face structure, because your eyes, your nose, and mouth, and also the head and shoulder structure, because and that's why they wear these weird hats with sticks and stuff in them. Because if you don't cover those things, everybody, even if they don't know what they're looking for, catches that stuff. Just like in the corner of eye, you ever caught something, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought someone was standing there, because something represented that light structure or proportion. What I'm saying is everybody's in tune with light structures and proportions. I think I just go back.
Backwards.
Oh, forward. Okay. So everybody's in tune with light structures and proportions, and yeah, so you can't fool them. You just can't. You can't fool them. They know what they're looking at, and if you get it wrong, like Dalen said, then you're making a mistake. But if you know what's wrong or you're doing it on purpose because you know what's right, then that's called design and creative design. So, Dylan, did I kind of just um, reiterate what you said, or is there anything you want to add to that?
No, I think you reiterated what I said and added to it. The proportions and design, and lighting. They don't even have to be, like you said, they don't have to be an artist to notice those things are wrong. They just won't know exactly. They won't be able to put their finger on it. They're gonna be like, "But this doesn't look," and that's all it takes for
Yeah.
them to be dissatisfied.
Yeah, they won't be able to help you, but you're exactly right. They definitely and because as a tattoo artist or an artist in general, they don't want to hurt your feelings because it's so personal. They might not tell you. So you have to know what the rules are so that you can learn how to break them, or before you can even break them. So we'll move on from art to the next slide. But thank you, Dalen, for jumping in on that. Okay. Before we get to it, let's read a couple of these questions. We're going to move a little quick here through the slides, guys, because I do want to get more into the questions. So if you have some, hold them off for a few minutes because we'll get to them at the end. I promise to be done at 9, and we're already 5 minutes over, but we will rock you. Wow. Okay. So Brody Jade says, "What about color theory? Is that something to be important to study? Something that it that be is that something that be important to study?" Yes, it is something to be important to study. It very much is, and we're going to get to that right in I think the
Right
next
now.
slide.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that as we speak. Ready? Okay. So we're going to talk about the next one, right?
The next
I'm
one.
still waiting. There we go. So color theory, which is a funny word, but there you go. I like it.
I do
Theory,
too.
theory's fun. So go ahead and read these, and then we'll talk about that, and that'll answer your question, Brody Jade.
Okay. Both the science and art of using color. There are 3 defined groups: primary, secondary, and tertiary or intermediate. Do you want me to go into stylization
Yeah.
as well? Just do the whole. Okay.
Mhm.
Stylization, representation of anything in reality without an attempt to accurately portray it. Examples of this are Pablo Picasso, Vincent van Gogh, Andy Warhol, and Georgia O'Keeffe. Your art is what customers are paying for. Your art is what people come in for.
Super, super important because a lot of this is so subjective. I am trying to put it in a way that's literal on screen or to paper so that you can see it in words and so that we have something to talk about, but still know that art is past the words, art is past the styles, art is past whatever limitations you can give it. It's past the limitations, meaning otherwise, if we're just staying in the limitation, we're not creating anything new, it wouldn't be art, and it definitely wouldn't be any new art. So art by definition has to be past all of the things we're about to talk about, but these things help you get there. These things are like the vehicle that gets you to the limits in which we can use words for. Or if I don't want to get too off into the weeds here, but art is a very subjective thing. So in talking about these things, these are the rules, but you were using these to create something hopefully eventually beyond it, which these stylizations descriptions at the end with these other artists, that's exactly what they did. Picasso, for example, I'm not even going to correct it. Is that kind of correcting it though by saying that? Okay. So Pablo Picasso, these people, a lot of these people, like scientists and people in the past who pushed limits, they were imprisoned for the things they made, for the things they said. Like people, there's a reason why our constitutional rights, why our very first amendment is what it is because people get in trouble historically always for things they say. And sometimes what we say is through art. We say it with imagery. And I believe that's the point of art, is to represent something that's hard to put into words, right? They say a photograph is worth 1,000 words or something. Well, then if that's true, then what is a movie worth? Because a movie is like built of millions and millions of photographs to make it to come together. Um, so anyway, these things are kind of subjective. So we'll go over them in a literal sense, but I just want to say, as an artist myself and someone who likes to foster other artists and encourage other artists to use these as guidelines, not necessarily set rules, and to think beyond the boundaries. Hopefully that helps. But in color theory, you have to know it. I mean, you absolutely have to know it. You have to know it to be able to use it. So we couldn't possibly touch on all there is to know regarding it because it would take forever. There would be a whole class in itself. But you have to know it. And if you don't know anything about it, do some research. If you're an artist and you're creative, then it should be fun for you, right? So this will answer Brody's question about what about color theory. the science of using color and what a complement of color is to a hue. What is a value? What is a tone? What's warm? What's cool? You got to know these things. So again, we couldn't go over them all possibly in 1 hour, 10 hours even. It takes a lifetime for people to learn these things. So be patient with yourself. Learning, like it says, primary colors, learning those and how you can make pretty much any color after that off of it. What a secondary color is and why it matters. Tertiary colors as well. How to mix, like if you want something to turn a certain hue or have a certain value and you want to mix grays or you want to mix another color. Those are going to be totally different effects, and it's your smorgasbord to pick from. I actually hate that word, but it worked really well. Stylization, again, is subjective. It's absolutely subjective, but it's really kind of not subjective in the sense that if you don't know what you're doing and you're just messing shit up, so many artists do this, and I've done it, where we think, oh, I don't want the rules. I'm just going to do my own thing and it's going to be grand. And you don't know any of the rules. Well, little newsflash, all you're doing is halting your progress until you just accept that until you learn the rules, you could almost say, the rules, then you're not making anything yet. You're just not. You suck probably. Matter of fact, if I can ask you about light structure or color theory to some degree, I could probably guess how well your art comes out. And I'm not judging you in your art. I'm saying I know that there's things you want to make that are beyond the rules. And if you don't yet even know the rules, then you can't be making shit that's beyond it. So let's learn the rules and move on from there. I'm also going to move into Dalen for a second as an artist to see what his input is before we get to the next slide real quick. So Dalen, let's make it short and sweet because we want to get to the end of this in a sort of timely manner. But is there anything you have to say about that in regards to art?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you got to, or kind of like what we're both saying, you got to know the rules to break them. And color theory is one of those things. I do feel like doing some research in. I do think it's a balancing act. There's a fair amount of research you should do. Look into prior artists, look into what works and why it works. Not just what works, but understanding why it works. And if you understand the why, what that'll let you do is when it's time to break the rules, you'll understand. You'll have a deeper understanding
Why
of
you're
like,
breaking the rule.
yeah, and just going with your gut. Honestly, at the end of the day, like obviously there are some stuff that you should research, but I am a firm believer in do you honestly feel it looks right? And if you do, cool. But like also understanding in a deeper understanding.
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and again, learn the rules so you can learn how to break them and have some fun with it because that's where I think art starts first.
Hmm. And
Um,
practice. And like you said, yeah, you can research them as much as you want, but take it into practice. Yeah, I can study watercolor online as much as I want, but actually doing the medium, that's
mhm.
going to take me.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to go back to the slide real quick, and so that we can move on, I'm going to touch on the very end of it that Amber read earlier. It says, your art is what people are paying you for. Art is what people come in for. That's what you're getting paid for, and that's what people want you for. And what's funny is it's the most subjective part of everything we've been talking about. There's nothing subjective about business structures and tax structures and rules and laws. There's nothing creative or at all. There's nothing to really flex there. It's very literal. When it comes to sterilization, there's no room for creativity whatsoever, right? And pretty much most of this so far has been no room for any of those things. So these things are very literal. But when it comes to art, ironically, the only thing they care about, nobody comes to you and asks you about how you sterilize. I mean, almost never. I mean, like nobody cares. Well, I should say they care very much, but they're not interested. So they just want to know you're doing it right. But your art, the thing they care about the most, is also the most subjective thing. So if you want to be an artist, man, just learn how to break the rules. So first, learn the rules, and let's see you break them because it's so cool to live in a world where people create new things, so we can have a interesting place to exist in. So artists out there, unite. I'm just kidding, but thank you, artists out there that create this wonderful world we live in. I'm surrounded by them all the day, all the time. So I'm like super grateful for that. So we'll move on to the next one, which is tattooing. Why everybody's here, which is ironic that it's so late in the slides, and it's for a reason. You need to know all this stuff first before you even get to this. But this is what everybody does first. And I want to say that's wrong. There's lots of ways to learn something, but they skip all that other stuff. So they start tattooing and then realize, oh my gosh, I don't know how to clean things. Oh my gosh, I don't know if this is dangerous. Oh shoot, I'm getting into legal trouble. Hey, why am I getting, this notice in my mail saying that the city of Clovis or the county of Fresno is, looking at me and what am I doing wrong? I don't know. Now I got to go do all this research. Using the hand gestures here for a reason, because you're just completely lost, right? So ironically, tattooing is what you need to learn as a skill. I like to point out, and I'll let Amber read these in a second, but I like to point out that tattooing is a skill, just like sterilization is a skill. Just like administrative, like being able to work with people, doing consultations, doing, even if it's literal stuff. These are all skills. Tattooing is a skill. Art, I wouldn't say is a skill. Painting's a skill. Drawing is a skill, but art is not a skill. So just like painting and drawing, tattooing is a skill. It's a medium you're using. So we're going to talk about what those things are. Again, we won't go too far into them because there's way more than we could cover. And it's really important you learn these things from a professional, but we'll get at least into some of the basics here.
Tattooing styles. There are countless styles. Popular ones include
Did it again.
Traditional, old school, realism.
Why is it doing that?
Photorealism, tribal, neo-tribal, minimalism, fine lines, watercolor, geometric, biomechanical, and bioorganic.
Yep. So there's lots of styles, and it's very imperative that you learn them, because one of the things about the industry is you'll look like a moron if you call it a gun and it's a machine. If you don't know what tribal is, I mean, that I think everybody had to be living under a rock to not know that. Actually, I even think then you would know. But when it comes to fine line stuff and geometric and biomechanical and bioorganic, that type of stuff, even realism, some people don't realize that some stuff is not realism. Some stuff just looks 3D, but that's not realism. So you need to know these things. It's very important for you to be a professional, especially if people are coming to you and they want you to be the skilled, trained professional that you are going to be. And they say, I want watercolor or fine lines or something you're wrong about, and you give them something they didn't want. I will tell you right now, they probably won't say anything to you, but they will say everything to everybody else about how much they hate what they got. So you'll never hear about you'll most of the time never hear about the negative things they say about you. So let's go to the next one.
Tools and machines. Rotary machine is a spinning motor that moves the attached needle up and down. And then there's a coil machine, which uses an electromagnetic circuit to move the needle grouping, needles, pigments and ink, and your equipment.
Yes, there you go. So to learn the skill of tattooing, you need these things to be able to do so. You have to know the difference between a rotary machine and a coil machine. One is to also not look like an idiot, but also because you need to understand, well, let's say the mechanics of the way the machine works. Because if you don't know when something's not working, let's say you're trying to achieve a nice solid color or a nice, beautiful, thick, rich, clean, single pass, crisp as hell, fine line or bold line or traditional line of some sort or a power line. Lots of details here. If you want to do that and it's not working, well, and you don't know your machines and you don't know how they operate, you don't know what problem to solve. So you need to know these things. And I'm going to tell you right now, you will spend years, you'll spend your whole career learning this, because they also always adapt and change. So you'll have to at least know, like a coil machines, for example, is a rudimentary machine that people have been using forever, but they're still badass, and you can see them and how they operate. Whereas if you get a rotary machine, it's like a pen. It's all internal. You pretty much just hold on to it like you would a pencil, and you can't see anything moving. So you don't really know the functionality of it unless you do a lot of research, where the coils are very literal. So that helps. I like teaching people coils, even if they don't want to use them, because it's very professional to know, but it's also very useful. So also learning about needles, pigments, and equipment. You got to know these things, and you got to know the details. There's lots to it. It's not that simple, but again, learning from a professional is useful. But honestly, most of this information is online. You can YouTube it. YouTube this stuff, and you'll find out all the information you need. You don't really need much training to get this information, but you definitely need tons and tons of training to be able to apply it. So let's get to the next slide regarding tattooing.
Techniques. Like styles, there are many different techniques, including stippling, whip shading, dilution, single pass, and gradients.
There we go. So we'll talk about the techniques and again, what it looks like in terms of practicality, like how do you learn them, and where do they come from, really? Where do they come from? Where do they go? Brody's on here saying the sound of coils, because a lot of us are going to miss it because you're not going to hear it anymore. You're not going to see the sound of coils. So the sound of coils is kind of fading away unless you're going to a traditional shop. Matter of fact, traditional tattooing, as I know it, and something Dalen actually is very fascinated with too. It's funny that I love to get traditional tattoos, but I hate doing them. But it's kind of like loving to drive a car, but you don't want to work on it. So it's kind of my metaphor to understand that. But she's saying the sound of coils. I really think somebody would do a good business by opening a traditional shop that was almost kind of how we treat 50s diners, right? Like a burger and fries and a milkshake and an old glass with a cherry on top, two straws and checkered floors. Um, that is iconic. I think that people now opening traditional shops that smells like green soap, has that 50s, 60s vibe to it. They only do traditional. They use old school stuff, maybe wearing like a banker's visor, but just really going and staying true, not to poke fun of it, but to really just harness the culture behind it. It's becoming exactly that. It's becoming a sort of niche it's becoming romantic because it's not really let's say, industry leader anymore, where it used to be very, very short amount of time ago, right? There was pretty much just traditional tattooing and a few variants of it. And now it's completely different. So the sound of a tattoo coil is definitely, it's almost like I want it on my radio in the shop in the background because I miss it and it's going away. I don't even hear it anymore. And when I do hear it, I'm like, wow, I don't realize how loud that was. I used them for years. And so if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, the buzz of the machine is an old tattoo machine. They were ran by coils. So there we go. Dambria said, practice makes perfect. Dambria, practice potentially makes you better. Practice doesn't make perfect. There's no such thing as perfect in anything we do. I believe what you're saying is true, and I get it. I know what you mean. Practice makes you better, potentially. Because I know people who do the same thing and they practice it their whole life and they suck. So it doesn't make you perfect. It just has the potential to make you better, and it's necessary to get better, of course. Okay, so we talked about techniques. No, we didn't talk about techniques. We talked about the tattooing and the tools, but the techniques are really important too to be able to achieve certain things. Oftentimes, I actually use all these techniques, and there's many more. This is just a few. I use almost every technique inside of a tattoo to create a portrait. One portrait. It's not like you just go in there and do whip shading or something soft or single pass or something. A lot of times there's no lines. You're using a little bit of everything. So you got to understand the techniques and what they're used for. Sometimes even like stippling, whether you're literally poking dots to get it to be bold or you're whipping the stipple, meaning the machine's moving slow enough that as you glide it across the skin, it's leaving little dots. If your machine's running too fast, you're leaving so many dots it just looks like a line. And if your machine's running too slow, it'll actually snag in the skin. And so it kind of clips and doesn't work very well. So there's lots to know there, but you got to use all of the techniques if you want to be a professional and be able to pull off the kind of shit I do. Should have seen my Edward Scissorhands today. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, so we'll get to the next one because, again, we could talk a lot about these. And guys, I also do an in-person class on occasion. I would like to be regular at it, but for now, you'll just have to be patient with me. If you or anybody you know or you guys are getting something out of this, the class is where you can ask me questions directly, and I love to answer them. And I always promise people this. If you come to my classes, if you join me on the courses, if you guys come onto these streams, if you DM us, come into the shop, whatever it is, and you have questions, I'm more than willing to help you. There's really the only criteria is that, you're respecting mine and everybody else's time as well as your own by bringing notepads, by listening and, paying deliberate attention, especially in the classes. But there's no excuse, again, like I said earlier, there's no excuse for to not know these things. And you definitely can't say nobody is willing to help you. One of the reasons, probably the main reason why I do the actual classes in person, and I'll always make them for free for as long as I can, hopefully forever, is because I'm just creating something I wish I had, and that's it. And hopefully robbing everybody of the opportunity of being able to say, well, nobody wants to help me. Well, you no longer, for all of you, are damned forever because you never get to say that again. So you know where to go now, and you don't get to use that as an excuse because that's all it is. So let's go to the next slide here. And this is my favorite. Have I told you this?
Yes.
What have I said about this? What do you know about this in regards to how I feel about it?
So it's your favorite.
100%.
But but that it's almost new to you, right? As far as like you've been tattooing for so long, and you've been a business owner now for at least with the shop itself, right? For several years now. But this is where you get to, it's like a new, different form of creating for you, and learning about this and learning about how people's brains work in order to use this.
Sure, pure psychology
is what you enjoy doing.
So to me, it's art. Networking, marketing, branding sounds maybe boring to some people. I know at first when I was younger, it sounded very corporate. I don't see it that way anymore. I see it as the highest level of entrepreneurship. I see it as the highest level, which I love business, so that matters to me. I think it's one of the higher levels. Maybe Dalen have different opinions about this, but it's one of the highest levels of art because it's called communication, and there's no higher level of art than communicating something. That is what art is by its fundamental nature, is communicating something. It's the highest level of psychology, learning how people actually work, not how you think or would like them to work. You actually have to learn how they really work, what they respond to, what they don't, what moves them, what drives them. Marketing and branding, it's just purely like the highest form of almost, you could say, existence. And I'll say it this way, take it a little biblical. I would like to bring this up that the 5 first words in the Bible are, in the beginning, God created. I just think that's so important. And mind you, what did he use to create things? His words. He said, let there be light, and it was good. That's how he created everything. So I think that's wonderful because, you've heard the phrase that your tongue is your rudder. There you go. You want to be an artist? This is the highest level of it. Now, also, I will say this too before we get too much into it, and I'll bring Dalen on to give me some feedback on this. In regards to networking, marketing, and branding, I'll just do it with an accent, and then you won't know. Should networking. This not only is the highest level, and not only the thing that's fascinating to me the most lately, but it's also, I think, probably, other than being safe and sterile, the most powerful thing to your industry that you're in, especially the tattoo industry, or really, really any industry. It doesn't matter where you're at. This is the steroids to everything we talked about previously. Anything regarding this industry, if you haven't stayed to the end of this and heard what we're about, all the stuff that we're about to dispel here, you're missing actually the whole point of this episode. Because if you want to add value in a shop as an apprentice, here's where you're going to do it. If you don't have anything to offer, you're not a super great artist, you've never been in an industry before where you've learned the professional skills, this is the stuff you could do at home. If you don't know how to add value and you don't know how to, I say walk into a shop and say, hey, I followed you guys, I did this, I tagged you in that, but you've learned some of this stuff that we're going to talk about briefly. This is the steroids. This is it. Here's the sort of, what would you say, like the sprinkles, the cherry on top, right? That would be the. What else can we say about it? It's steroids. It's the sprinkle on top. It's the sizzle.
It's the sizzle.
It's the sizzle. That's what it is. So here's the sizzle, and maybe it's even more than that. Maybe it's more foundational than that. But I'm going to ask Dalen here. Dalen, what do you think about this? Because me and you've talked extensively about this. I think more in the shop than probably anybody besides maybe Lele.
Yeah, no, I was going to mention, if you weren't, it's definitely the steroids to whatever endeavor you're trying to get through. It's the bow on the wrapped gift.
Yeah,
it's
the bow.
Holds it together. I wanted to touch on, definitely marketing in today's world has taken more of a view on, online social media, websites, online ads and whatnot. And I just, in regards to social media and being your own marketing agent, to not be afraid. It doesn't matter if you're introverted or extroverted. That's no excuse. Like, if you're an introvert and you say, oh, I can't market my business, you don't have to show your face. You don't have to, do voiceovers, whatever. There are plenty of opportunities to market your business and not have to be at the forefront of it. So it could take, it's a skill, and it's not something you're born with the ability to market. Sure, it could be easier if you're extroverted, but it is definitely, there are plenty of more successful introverted people that are marketing managers than there are extroverted marketing managers.
Sure. So to add to that is, like, who owns Tesla?
Right, Elon.
Who owns Nike?
I don't know off the top of my head who owns Nike.
So exactly reiterating what you just said, everybody knows this already. That is exactly my point, right? So you don't have to be, you could be the swoosh and it's a symbol, or you could be the swoosh and it's the actual person. So don't be afraid to do that. And it is everything. I really do think so. I think if you're really good at these things, which, by the way, is absolutely, out of all the things we talked about tonight, the hardest thing to do. This is human psychology at the highest level. You're playing in the big leagues with this stuff. So like I was talking to my son the other night about this in regards to his life and success. He's very young. He's just starting his journey as a grown man. And I told him, you will never, ever go wrong by learning this, whether it's marketing, branding, and networking, or it's script writing, or, presentations, or public speaking and communication. It will, I don't think anything else will serve you better at all things than this. So it really is the steroids to everything that we talked about tonight: sterilization, administration, tattooing, art, skills, all the things you need to learn is wrapped up in this. And this is the steroids to it. So again, I could talk forever about this, and I would love to do a whole seminar where this is all we talk about, because this is so fat. I'm still learning a ton about this, but I'm fascinated by it, and it's very intriguing to me. So it'd be really fun to talk about in a future episode. But since we didn't even read it, Amber, why don't you go ahead and read this here for us, and then we'll move on and do some questions before we end the night.
Networking, the gateway to career development, and is essential for business. The benefits of networking include building your reputation, putting more eyes onto your craft, promoting your business growth, and it can get you introduced to industry leaders.
There you go. That's I could go on and on and on about this, but that I don't think needs anything further, because you get so much from just that list. And again, this is all available. Is this slideshow the actual thing, or it's this? But it's all in
PDF.
there. There's a little extra in here.
There's extra in here.
Okay,
yes.
so if you guys get the PDF that's online and download it and use this, you will get all this information and then some. There'll be updates to it too, and it'll change forever. It'll always be adapting to new things and new thoughts and new ways. But for now, you can get this current one and get this information to yourself. Take notes to it if you ever come to a future class. 100%. Super impressive. Bring this with you with notes taken and have tons of questions. And let's make the whole next class just questions off all this, because that would be awesome, because we can move on. So let's move on from this one and go to the next.
Marketing plays a pivotal role in making a business successful. Benefits of marketing include maintaining demand, building your reputation, your relevance, and your competition. I almost can't read from here. Damn it, I need new glasses. I have it here too, but it's fine. Makes customers aware of your product and services, engages the customers, and builds a relationship between customer and business.
There you go. So I'm only going to point out one thing regarding all of that, and it wraps it up into a nice, beautiful bundle. You don't tattoo people without another person, right? It has to be another person. I think that's pretty obvious, but I think it's something a lot of people forget about. You don't get a like without another person on the other side. You're not getting comments from, machines. Typically, you're getting comments, likes, views from humans. You're getting tattoos and opportunities from humans. You're getting paid money by other humans. You're getting attention. You're getting love and affection. Everything that's transacting in this industry and in your life is all via humans, right? So this is so important, because you might think it's marketing, networking, branding, and I'm not really into that stuff. It's very corporate, very stale. It's not me. I'm not a salesman. We all are this. Here's how we can prove it. All of us are part of a network, right? Who's the funniest person you know? The funniest you know this person, just every time you see him, your stomach hurts, right? Everybody's got that person. Who's the craziest person you know that every time you go to like a family outing or hang out with that buddy, you're like, dude, don't bring it up to him? Who's the person you know that absolutely talks the most out of anybody you've ever met? You know somebody that you're like, oh my gosh, get them started. So anyway, that's networking, right? You've networked it. You've branded, because if I were to ask you, what do you get Aunt Nancy for Christmas? And you're like, oh, she's a crazy cat lady, or she's super into baking. I'm going to give her those crazy oven mitts that are shaped like cows because she loves cows and to cook. That's branding, right? Mm-hmm. So marketing, what's marketing? It's saying, hey guys, we're having a birthday party. The twins are turning 12, and you want everybody to come, and they got there. You've just done it all. We're all doing this all the time, but doing it intentionally is rare. This is why I think these are the steroids to your business, because it's people you're working with, and it's really relationships between humans, and getting really good at that will only always pay off in a positive way. Is this the last slide? No way. Okay, we got one more. So I don't want to take up too much time.
2 more
Okay, so I'm going to just graze these real quick. I won't make you read them all. So we're going to continue on the branding side with this information. You guys could, again, get the PDF online and get through a lot of this and have questions and come to the classes, and we can talk way more about it, because I would love to do a whole episode on just this. But it obviously is very important, and this will label a lot of that here. So in terms of branding, think of branding, again, as what do people know about you, right? If somebody were to buy you a birthday present, like, your Uncle John is super into hunting. He's branded himself so well that you know what to get him for Christmas. That's what you are as a person. That's what you are as a business. You are putting out signals so people know how to respond to you. That's what branding is. So branding is pretty simple in the sense that we all do it, but now to do it consciously is very effective. And especially in this industry, you should definitely take it seriously, because people are watching you. You're branding yourself anyway, so you might as well do it intentfully. Intentfully?
I was just going to go with
making
it.
shit up.
You just.
I'm like Shakespeare. I'm just making up a bunch of new English words. I should really just write them down and stop asking if they're real. Of course they're real. I just said it. So network.
You spoke it into existence.
Yeah. So this is the end, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the profanity that we.
So this is what we promised you guys at the beginning that we would say. And if you're underage or you don't want to hear this, then cover your ears. Or if your kids are around and you're watching this in bed and they're laying next to you saying, "Who's the weird bearded guy with the rad chick behind him making all this happen?" This is the part where you want to cover their ears. But go ahead and read this for me, Amber, with enthusiasm, at least in the red section.
Of course. Most importantly, fuck shit up.
Fuck shit up.
Stop overanalyzing your craft. Don't suffer paralysis by analysis. Overthinking is egocentric. The richest stream of information is failure. And I've always really I like this one. Don't get emotional about money.
Perfect. So this is gold right here. This is actually probably the most important slide out of all of them, because the other ones are very niche. They're very specific. They're very kind of skill or environmental specific in the sense of how they're applied or used. This is beautiful. Matter of fact, Lele. So by the way, you guys should know that my apprentice who came to one of the classes, she actually, okay, perfect story. Sorry, Dalen, it's not you. Lele, not that you're not a great story, but Lele came into the shop. She got a tattoo. She loved the way I explained to the person who was tattooing her some of the skills they needed, and I even put gloves on and helped them out with it. She loved the way I explained it, because she thought, "Wow, that's really cool that he explains it in a way that even I understood that." And being an artist herself and not knowing us in the shop at all, she did some research. She found out we had classes. She came to one of them. She came to all of them since then. I think this is the first class she hasn't been to since then, and there's been a lot. So she's came to all of them. She takes notes like a madman. I have never in my life, and this is no exaggeration, I've never seen anybody take more notes. All of this is the culmination of her notes distilled down into what's most important. So she not only made this packet, Amber helped with making a PDF downloadable for you guys, and then put it into this nice presentation for us to be able to deliver it for you here online. This part of it is so crucial, because this is her. This is Lele taking all those things over the years of putting these classes together, and even the last year of me knowing her and her attending them, and putting it into something like this, which is so good. So I'm going to read it again. Most importantly, fuck shit up. It is super, super important, as long as we're not talking about somebody's health or anything that's reckless. It's really, really important, because you're going to, and this is the part down here that says the richest stream of information is failure. You're going to make mistakes. Make sure they're calculated mistakes that aren't crucial. Make sure that if you're spending a bunch of money on training, you're not spending all of your money that's going to put you on the streets if it doesn't work out for you. If you're going to go and try some new art technique, make sure you're doing it on paper first, right? If you're trying something new in tattooing, make sure you at least know 90% of the tattoo you got it nailed. And if you're going to experiment, don't experiment with the whole thing, but maybe a little bit of it, and let your client know. But the important part is that you have that element in there, that you're willing to be a trailblazer, if you will. I like that word. Trailblazer. So overthinking is egocentric. That's a good one too, because a lot of people think overthinking is protecting the client, the customer, or the viewer, and it's not. It's you stuck in your own little tiny head. Mm-hmm. Get out of it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you guys should keep that one right there. This slide's probably, I think, my favorite one. I'm going to go ahead and take it to the questions. And before we actually ask you to, well, go ahead and ask the questions right now in the comments. But before we get to them, I'm going to take Dalen on for one more second and see if he has anything to add to that last part, because we did bail on him a little bit here for just a second. So let's make sure he's still appropriate. Where are you at, Dalen?
I'm right here. I'm right here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you sound wonderful. You have a voice for radio.
Thank you. My mother says the same thing.
No, she says you have a face for radio.
No,
You walked into that one.
You really
no,
did.
I was implying that.
With
I
his
was
face.
that lying.
Oh, okay.
No, I only asked because my earphones died, so I just want to make sure it still worked out. No, I all of that last slide. The reason I think it's so valuable is because it's so versatile. You can really apply all of those statements into whatever industry it is, whether it's the tattoo industry or not. By the end of it, whatever industry you're in, all of those statements you should apply. My personal one that sticks with me is the paralysis or analysis by process by analysis. That's the one I fall victim to the most. I definitely is something to work on, and we all have stuff. All those statements can apply to your strengths, and definitely it's worth pointing out what your weaknesses are, because once you point those out, you can spend actual energy and time in making them better, not making them so much a weakness. And that personally is my weakness. I spend too much time analyzing, too much time being afraid of messing it up, and obviously, like you said, within a safe environment, don't do this, like don't experiment on your client without letting them know, or the whole thing. But not being afraid to make mistakes.
True. Very true. And that's the thing, is when you're making mistakes by somebody who knows what they're doing, aka someone like me, or a master artist, or whatever endeavor you're in, making sure somebody's well qualified to be able to oversee you, so that you can at least, let's fuck some shit up, but let's make sure that we get a little bit of approval. Like, one of my expectations for new apprentices is, if they're going to tattoo on somebody when they first start, they have to run by me their design idea and placement completely. Do not tattoo somebody. I don't care if you've done that one 10 times and you're like, oh, I've done this. This is cool. Josh doesn't need to know about it. I absolutely need to know about it, because there's little things I can see that you can't, because I've done this for so long. So it's important to fuck shit up, but it's also important to do it in a calculated way, under especially under somebody's supervision that you can trust. I sound so much like a dad right now, but it's so important, because that gives you that opportunity to really take those calculated risks and learn quicker. So really, again, in a nutshell, everything we're talking about tonight is in hopes to get someone from not knowing maybe anything to maybe a little something, or they've dabbled, to knowing enough to get started and take action in a safe way, so that they can move forward. And the most efficient way to do that, so that you don't waste a bunch of time, because you will, is by doing it with someone who knows what they're doing and that is qualified, and that you can look up to it in admiration, at least in terms of their skill and their success. Everybody's got something you can learn from, but I think the closer you can get to the person, or the environment that has all the things you need, I don't think anything's going to serve you better. Like I said earlier about, just get around the people who are already doing what you're doing, and that's the secret cheat code. You wouldn't need the rest of this if you could just figure out how to do that. But all these things will help support you in doing that. So we'll get to the question parts in regards to this. Dalen, let me ask you this real quick. When going to these classes and these courses, what stands out to you the most personally? Because you've been to quite a few of them, and what part of it, as a before you had an apprentice, as a photographer, as a young Norman yourself. I like that. Maybe that should be your name. Just Norman's such a cool. Yeah, it's so cool. A norm.
It goes with being a traditional.
Yes, Norman.
Norman.
Absolutely. I know who the Normans were. I know who the Norms were. The AKA the founders of the Scottish. Anyway, I don't want to get into world history. Dalen, so what stands out to you in those classes you went to before your apprentice?
Well, I'll touch on two things. I'll be too quick. I'll be pretty quick, because I know time. But first of all, I knew there was value in the classes themselves, just in that they were being offered, because I know within this industry, it's pretty hush hush. It can be pretty gatekeepy. It can be pretty like, we don't want to teach you because you're going to take clients from us. This mentality, this toxic mentality of not wanting to spread information. So I knew there was going to be value in even going to a class that's being offered for free, let alone. So I knew it was going to be good out the gate. Whatever information I was going to get was going to be valuable to me. I think, like I said, I went to college. I got my degree management, with some marketing classes, and hearing how beneficial it is in the real world is just, I don't know, it reassures me, okay, like the classes I took in marketing aren't going to go to waste. This is stuff that actually you're going to use day to day. So I think the marketing slides around my personal favorite.
Very cool. I'm glad. That's probably why me and you vibe so well together.
Mm-hmm.
We vibe well together, right, Dylan?
Yes. No, of course. Yes.
He's like, he doesn't like the nickname. I get it. Okay, so let's get to the questions. You guys have anything you want to ask some questions now? Now would be the time. We're not going to spend too much time doing it because, we have gone well over, and I want to respect everybody's time that's helped me out tonight. But let's get to these questions. Bum, bum, bum. If you guys have anything you want to ask, we will spend the next few minutes getting to them. If we don't get to them all, you guys, this isn't the last time we're doing this. So, thanks for joining us tonight, but join us again. And if you got anything out of this, share this with somebody. If you know somebody who's interested or maybe interested, or, you're on Facebook or YouTube and you want to support us, go to our page and buy a hat, buy a t-shirt, buy a tattoo, come let the apprentices practice on you. Come get pierced, get some holes on you. Get some holes on you by Amber Graham. And support the shop. If you got something out of this, support things you love. And if you love us, then support us. Let's do this. And we just appreciate you. And we love building this community. So we appreciate you guys being part of it. So in terms of questions, if you guys have anything to ask, we'll get to them now. Let me first say, Brody's saying, love learning about business. Thank you. Good, because I love talking about it. Is this a subject you enjoy? Like the business part of it, networking and all that?
Yes, very much.
Right on, gals. She's saying, pumpkin carving and paint night were perfect networking and branding. Great idea. Guess what?
I was going to say, can I?
In regards to pumpkin carving night, since you loved it so much, guess what? Amber Graham, take it away.
We're going to have a Christmas-themed paint night.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Super exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And there's going to be a surprise visit by old Saint Nick himself.
Yep.
So you should be there. You guys should check it out. We'll get a hold of you. We'll get our people. Will talk to your people. Don't worry. You'll see it. If you're here, you'll see. Yeah. So it's going to be exciting. Did we send an email out yet about any of it?
Not yet.
Okay. When will they maybe be able to expect something like that?
Once I have been given more thorough information, I will share it.
Perfect. So you guys shortly will be getting some information regarding that. So Christmas paint night is upon us. Okay. Any questions that
Winter is coming.
Winter is here. The shortest day of the year? When's the shortest day of the year? Do you guys know? Anybody know? What's the shortest? Did I say day? Yes.
Yes, because you're correct. Shortest day of the year.
Shortest day of the year is what day?
Is coming up.
You're exactly right. See if anybody knows without Googling.
I don't remember what the exact day is.
Okay. Let's see if anybody knows what that day is. Amanda's on here. Thanks for joining us, Amanda. Hello, beautiful peeps. Miss y'all. She's asking a good question here. Why don't you go ahead and read that one?
It says, weird question. I can draw on paper cartoon characters. How hard is that to apply to skin?
Interesting. Okay. So she's saying I can draw on paper cartoon characters. How hard is that to apply to skin? So the closest thing to tattooing that I'm aware of, other than tattooing itself, and tattooing maybe fake skin, the closest thing without a machine and having any of the equipment is drawing with pen and paper. Pencil, color pencil, lead pen, doesn't matter. Whatever pencil you got, number 2, number 6, doesn't matter. An actual ballpoint pen, maybe even a Sharpie. That's about as close as it gets. Not painting, not acrylic or oil, not photography. All those things are powerful help and can transfer some of those skills. The actual physical skill of tattooing, which is exactly what it is, I like to make that clear. Tattooing is not an art. Tattooing is a skill, right? A skill can be learned by anybody. Anybody who has a hand or an appendage that can hold a machine can learn the skill of tattooing. The art is what you then make with it in the end. Just like a paintbrush, there's no art to painting. Painting is a skill you use to make art. So don't get those confused. Which means to learn the skill on how to apply that then character, this thing in which you can create to skin, is very difficult. It takes a lot of time because it entails everything we just went over. So basically all the stuff we talked about and times it by 1,000 because there's so much more to go over. That's how hard it is. Now, if you held a gun to my head and said right now, let's teach Amanda how to tattoo by the end of the night, and if she doesn't do a decent job, then lights out. Then the first thing I would do is put a machine in your hand and just tell you to go to town for as long as you can, as much as you can, and keep learning and learning. Just go, just get the machine to the skin. That's how you're going to learn. But we got to learn how to do that safely and efficiently because nobody's got that metaphorical gun. Thank goodness. So we got time, so let's do it correctly. So anybody who wants to learn, that's why we're here. Vibing is key, she says. Vibing is key. Maybe she was talking about something a little bit later. Vibing is key. Maybe she was talking about between me and Dalen. Vibing is key. If you're not vibing with the people, especially if you want to work there, then no bueno.
Yeah.
Yep. Let's go ahead and read this question.
Hockney says, if you weren't tattooing, what would you be doing? Is there any other industry that translates the most over to tattooing?
Very loaded. I'm going to answer this first, and then we will ask Norman and see what he says. So if you weren't tattooing, what would you be doing? Well, I was in construction. So if I wasn't tattooing, I probably would have stayed there. And it's loaded because the reason I'm tattooing is it's popular. It makes money. It's the new thing. The reason I'm not a window painter is because window painting's dead. The reason I'm not a pinstriper is because pinstriping is over. It's all made. People aren't making signs by hand anymore. That's now nostalgic. Just like all music was made by composers at one point, all of them were played in symphonies. That's no longer true, and you can use a keyboard. We could literally make a Mozart song right here with the tools in front of us, or even just a phone. So I think that's why I'm a tattoo artist, is because we're in the era in which it's something you can do as an industry. Whereas in the past, you probably had one guru that was allowed to be the tattoo artist for a tribe, and maybe not all tribes had one. So I think that's why. Now, I think that's why I say it's loaded, because I'd like to say it's because growing up, I saw my uncles and my grandfathers who were the toughest men I knew, which is true. But I don't think that's it. I think it's something simpler. I think I'm an artist, like some people are, and I have a desire to express things, and it happens to be the thing now that you can enter and make money and a living, which is really cool because honestly, being an artist and trying to monetize it, if it wasn't for tattooing, you know how many people would just be like, where would you go? Like, people get mad that there's so many people. There's such an influx of people today coming into the industry. Got a bunch of these young girls with a couple of minimalistic tattoos that are, crimp haired and like, prissy clothes, and they don't look like the typical biker dude. And people just get so mad about that. Well, get over it. Like, the industry is not yours. It isn't owned by anybody. So get your panties out of a wad and realize that it's not about you. Do your own thing and let them do theirs. So I don't know. I'll go off on that tangent a little bit. Is there any other industry that translates most over to tattooing? No, and there's no industry that translates into tattooing in regards to the actual skill of tattooing, other than maybe drawing with your hands. Like, no, I don't think there's any. But all the rest, other than the skill of tattooing, which is obviously crucial, all the rest does. Everything else we talked about tonight, aside from maybe sterilization, unless you're in the medical field, everything else, or the food industry, everything else pretty much translates perfectly. Also, Dalen, if you hear anything that we're talking about and you want to jump in, now's the good time to just interrupt or throw in your 2 cents or chime in. Same with you, Underground, if you have anything you want to say to any of these in regards to these questions. So they were asking, Dalen, if you weren't tattooing, what would you be doing?
I would probably be doing the photo stuff. But before I realized maybe the tattoo stuff was calling my name, I got that bug. Once I had that thought, it wouldn't go away. Like, try this thing, give it a shot. Before that, I was applying to places to be like a residential photographer. So I would probably be doing the photo thing, still something in the creative field.
Mm-hmm.
And then as far as industries that translate to the tattoo industry, it's such a unique thing. I don't think anything translates besides, and you already touched on this, the other aspects, the networking, the sanitation. For sanitation, I would say the more common answer would be if you worked in the restaurant industry. I've worked multiple restaurant jobs myself. You have to have like cross contamination classes and certification and whatnot. So you kind of get the gist of that there are invisible things that exist on the surfaces and not to cross contaminate. So I would say very few or no industry really translates to tattooing itself, but there are a handful that translates to everything that comes around
Very
the
true.
tattooing.
Very true. So you would be a photographer.
I would hope to say I would like to think so. Yeah.
I mean, you are a photographer, so you still are. It's kind of like you still are.
Still doing the
Yeah,
stuff.
you're still
Still
doing
doing.
it. Still doing it. Okay. David saying nice. Ugly sweaters?
Yes.
Yes. Ugly
Yes.
sweaters.
Of course.
Here's a question also coming from Damber saying, how many classes do you need to take before you can practice on fake skin? Oh man, the only way I can answer that is there's not enough classes to take before you can practice on fake skin. In regards to being an apprentice or a tattooer, you're going to need lots and lots of. You're gonna have to pay your dues first by being a glorified janitor. Um, that's what you're gonna have to do because you're gonna have to prove to the shop, especially in our shop, you're gonna have to prove that you're actually worth your weight in salt before we even start giving you any of our gold. And it's not because we're stingy; it's because why would we cast pearls before swine? They say. We don't do that, and it's a waste of our time, and it's disrespectful to ourselves and the people we work with who've tried so hard to get where they are. We got to make sure you can do the same. And it's not to judge you in regards to the value of you as a human, but it is to judge you in regards to the value of whether or not you belong with us or in our industry, or I should say, at least in our shop in this industry. That's what we have to do. So we got to make sure that you can do that first. So it might not have anything to do with you practicing on fake skin for a while. Now, if there was a course or a class you could pay for to go, rent a machine and sit with 20 other people who just want to see what it's like, I don't have any problem with that kind of stuff. I've never done anything like that, but it sounds cool. And I've even talked to Dalen about this before. Like, what if we just didn't do the whole apprentice thing? What if we just sat people down, charged them money, gave them a perfect professional environment? Maybe they don't even want to be tattooers. They just want to go and see what it's like to actually tattoo someone. And we go, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you safe. We're going to basically hold your hand and make sure that you're in an environment that's totally safe. You're going to practice on fake skin for one day. And the next day, you're going to tattoo somebody willing and somebody that's able. And we're going to supervise you and we're going to charge you for it. I actually think that would be incredibly lucrative and people would enjoy it. I just don't think it's very educational. I think it's informational to some extent. It's very enlightening. And I think it'd be entertaining, but it's not really necessarily the road I'm trying to go on. But it does sound cool. And Dalen, you remember us kind of bringing that up once? He lost us. So
Sorry, my phone's fighting for its life at like 3%, so I keep having to like try to bounce it on the charger.
we got 4 minutes left. That's why it's trying to die.
Yeah, it's like, please end my life, please. No, I've definitely seen, like, I do think what you were just talking about wouldn't be for an educational purpose. It would be for a little bit more of a lucrative purpose. I do know other cities and where permitting is probably a little bit less strict than California and Clovis. There are these tattoo shops where on the weekends or the nights after the shop is closed, they do like a tattoo and drink night where people come, you get drinks, and then they tattoo like fruit. So they get the
Right.
chance to like machine and tattoo the fruit and stuff. So I don't think that would be kind of where you're trying to aim in like your scope of education. I think that's more of like a gimmicky, try this, have fun.
Might be a good networking thing for the business.
Oh,
But
absolutely. I think it's a bad idea. I
yeah,
definitely think there's there's places for both avenues.
right. Okay, so we've gotten to the end of everything. We got to utilize for the first time this beautiful, beautiful slideshow that Amber Graham put together. So thank you so much for that, Dalen.
You're so welcome.
Your commentary is amazing. I mean, like like I don't. I wonder if I come across because it's like trying to hear an accent. You can't hear your own. You can only hear everybody else's. I just hope I'm half the entertainer you are because you are a natural at this. And this is the first time we've really been on camera like this before. So seeing it translate to this was quite impressive, man. I feel like something was born tonight that is very exciting for the future. We did go 58 minutes over, so that must mean something.
It means we did better than last time when we went 2 hours over.
Right. It means that we're learning.
It means we stayed on.
Yep.
Better, getting better.
We will be learning. Do you think there's anything that I should have said or that I should have touched on that I missed at all, Dalen? Is there anything that stands out there? You're like, oh, we didn't really go over that one thing that I should just like at least make a remark about for future episodes or what we could talk about next?
I'm sure you mentioned what I'm about to. I'll be quick with it. I'm sure you mentioned some in the beginning, but the importance of having thick skin,
Mm-hmm.
especially when trying to get an apprenticeship. Like I said, the industry is pretty. It's getting definitely better, and it has to get better with internet and the accessibility of knowledge. But the whole gatekeeping, we don't want you here. So the being okay and not like keeping your head up when a shop tells you no,
Right.
that is okay. Just like buckle down, hope to gain something from that interaction. Maybe ask like, okay, I understand you said no, but like, what can I work on? Just trying to improve with those interactions, not wasting your time and not wasting theirs. And just improving and moving on to the next. Find another shop you like if there's another one local to you, and just keep on trying.
Perfect. That's a really great. I could totally end it at that. Ambergram, what about you? Is there
Sure.
anything you want to add that we didn't really go over that you would like to say to the folks watching?
I don't know necessarily if there's anything I'd like to add, but I do think reiterating, just because the amount of time we've now been on here, right, where you have to put in the work, and don't be afraid to walk in somewhere, show them what you have, and make something from it.
Mm-hmm.
Make yourself useful.
Right.
Stand tall, make eye contact,
Yes.
hand someone your portfolio, shake their hand, and do what you need to do.
Absolutely. That's perfect. I appreciate you guys saying all that, because I'll end it with saying my 2 cents on all of this in regards to that. What is the world without art? What's the world without color and design? It would almost, it would, whew, I wouldn't even want to imagine. I have a good imagination myself, and I can tell you right now, it's enough just to teeter on the idea of what it would be like to erase it all. I would probably break down in tears if it was all gone forever. So, but it's also, I think, the thing we take for granted most, right? We all follow the rules all day, and we all have to live a literal lifestyle to where we're functioning humans in this world, and we're all playing the game. But at the same time, what would it all be without color and design and art and artists and music and poetry and philosophy and movies? What would it be without all this stuff? Some of it might be a little corporate, and there's branding, and there's stuff that's not necessarily touching. It's not teetering on Pablo Picasso necessarily, but either way, this world's a beautiful place because of all of it coming together. And imagine it without art, I wouldn't even dare, because artists have a very important role, and it's very easy to forget that. And it's very hard to put a number on it. It's very hard to put a pin in it. It's hard to take it and show you it. So appreciate art. That's the point. I'm not saying hold artists on pedestals. I don't at all. I hold the creative feature of an artist, the creative desire within an artist, the need to share, express, or tell something, or to communicate something within a person, which then becomes the art. That's what I admire, not necessarily the person themselves. Although I give credit where credit's due, I think it's important to live in a world full of art, obviously, because imagine one without it. But it's also important to realize that you don't have to live by the rules within art. You can just enjoy. It doesn't have to have meaning for you to get tattooed. The painting doesn't have to have some inherent meaning or be handed down by grandpa. The color of your car doesn't have to have some sort of tie to your lineage or some sort of clan you were born from. This is something we enjoy as human beings. This is deeply rooted in our history. Obviously, art, making clay pottery and cave drawings, is the oldest art form known to man. The oldest mummy we ever found is literally covered with hundreds of tattoos. This is not new. This is not a trend. Are people going to judge you? Sure. Do people have their opinions? Yes, they're supposed to. That's the point of all of this, right? It's supposed to move us, whether it's one way or another, and just let it in, have fun with it, enjoy it. And it's wonderful to be, it's both wonderful and torturous to be an artist in this world. But either way, I appreciate it, and I wouldn't change it for anything. And I appreciate you guys being on here tonight. Dalen, I appreciate you and your efforts. This was awesome. This was our first real online course class episode, and doing it live. So that was a lot of fun. I hope you guys got something out of it. If there's more questions and things you guys want to know, we'll do this again. And yeah, we bid you farewell. It's been real. It's been fun. And it actually has been real fun. So thank you guys. Till next time, we will see you again. Let's get some outro music going on. That's right. See you, Dan. Thank you.